Chapter 28:48. Chu-ho opened her eyes, which were bloodshot. Pain. So painful, because of the great pain, her eyeballs couldn't move very well. Are you going to sign it or not? The person beside her waved the whip in front of her. It seemed to be a threat, but it also seemed to be a threat. It was as if she said no, the whip would come at her again in the next second. However, Chu-his lips quivered. She did not nod obediently and beg for mercy like a pug as he wished. Instead, she spat out 2 words coldly, "Don't even think about it." Ha! The person sneered and flicked the tail of the whip. It landed on the ground with a pah sound, which echoed continuously. "Woman, you're really stubborn. Boss has instructed that tonight, we'll stop until you sign. Why, do you want to die? If you can't even take these 3 lashes, how are you going to deal with the rest?" Chu-ho glanced at him from the corner of her eyes and retorted sarcastically, "You want to kill me or cut me up, don't you think? Either I die, or I take the child away. There's no third option. Are you really not afraid of death?" The man was so angry that his face turned ashen. Before his master left, he had specifically instructed that she must sign it. His task was to force this woman to sign the agreement. If he couldn't complete his task, then the next person to be punished would be him. This woman was so stubborn. He was afraid that even if he whipped her again and again, there wouldn't be any changes. He couldn't possibly kill her, right? His master had also instructed him to keep her alive. If he killed her like this, wouldn't his master skin him and pull out his tendons? Thinking of this, the man couldn't keep up his airs. He couldn't predict whether this woman would die after a few more lashes. It had to be said that a person's life was very fragile at times. It was often a matter of a single thought. Hence, the man summoned his underling and asked him to quickly report the situation. The subordinate was also a quick-witted person. Seeing that Chu-ho was on the verge of death and on the verge of collapse, he was afraid that he could not hold on any longer and hurriedly ran into the study. Ji-yu Jinglian was reading a book when his subordinate rushed into the study and said anxiously, "Master, that woman refused to sign and was whipped 3 times. She looks very weak. I'm afraid she can't take it anymore. If this continues, you'll definitely be beaten to death." "Oh." Ji-yu Jinglian frowned. "She still refuses to sign?" "Yes." The lackey nodded vigorously. "She fainted after being whipped 3 times. We went up to take a look and found that the bandage on her head was removed. It was a surgical scar, and the stitches hadn't been removed yet. From the looks of it, she had just undergone surgery and had yet to recover. These 3 whips had been ruthlessly lashed out. If this continued and she still refused to sign, she would be useless. If this goes on, someone will die." Ji-yu Jinglian clenched his fists in anger. "She's really stubborn. I'm afraid it's because of her maternal instinct." The lackey sighed. After all, asking a mother to give up her child's custody is crueler than any torture. "Are you speaking up for her?" Ji-yu Jinglian glanced at him suspiciously. He immediately defended himself. "It's no use. It's just that. I feel that this girl is quite pitiful. She's a little stubborn, but it's hard to dislike her." Chapter 28:49. Yes. The underling lowered his head in grievance. Observing his expression, he carefully probed, then, "Master, do you think we should continue?" Just as Ji-yu Jinglian was hesitating, Chu Xiaobao's cries suddenly came from the master bedroom. He suddenly got up and walked into the bedroom with a guarded expression. When he turned on the wall lamp, he saw that Xiaobao had woken up from his dream. He sat on the bed, hugging the blanket and sobbing pitifully. He must have dreamed of something scary, so when he woke up, he was so scared that he wailed loudly. He used the blanket to wipe his tears as he sobbed. Ji-yu Jinglian walked over and sat on the side of the bed. He asked in a low voice, "Why are you crying?" "Xiaobao." "Xiaobao dreamed of mommy." Chu Xiaobao rubbed his wet eyes and sobbed, "Xiaobao dreamed that mommy was standing by the bed and touching my face. But I don't know what happened. But in the blink of an eye, she disappeared. I chased after her and realized that she was walking away without looking back. No matter how I called her, she didn't seem to hear me. She didn't even turn around to look at me." Speaking of the pain, Chu Xiaobao cried even more pitifully. I chased after her with all my might, but it felt like the road was so long that I couldn't catch up. She didn't even look back and walked further and further away. When I opened my eyes, I realized that I was back on the bed. Sob, sob, sob. Does mommy not want me anymore? Does she not want me anymore? Gu Jinglian frowned. What was that saying again? It was called, Mother and Son Are Connected by Heart. In the past, he had thought that this saying sounded too pretentious. But now, he had seen it for himself. Mother and son were connected by heart. It was really strange. He immediately opened his mouth and said something that wasn't really coaxing. His tone was still gentle. You're dreaming. Uncle, Chu Xiaobao immediately cried out. A huge sense of unease engulfed him. Will mommy really not want me anymore? If she doesn't want you, then she doesn't want you. Gu Jinglian immediately expressed his stance. Uncle wants you. Woo. No, Chu Xiaobao cried even harder. Mommy, you can't abandon me. Why do you keep saying mom? Can't you follow uncle? Gu Jinglian was a little unhappy. This was a terrible feeling. He didn't realize that he cared a lot about what the child thought of him. However, it was obvious that in Xiaobao's heart, Chu Ho's position was more important. Naturally, he was dissatisfied. Chu Xiaobao muttered, You're not my father. He opened his mouth, but the words I'm your father didn't come out. Due to his pride, it was impossible for him to admit defeat to a child. Thus, he changed the topic and asked, How am I not? Mom didn't say you were. Chu Xiaobao acted like a mommy's boy. If mommy says you are, then you are. If mommy says you aren't, then you aren't. Gu Jinglian was so angry that his face darkened. This child was only 5 years old, but he was already so biased towards that woman. How could this be? However, he didn't think about it in another way. Since this child was born, he and Chu Ho had depended on each other. If he didn't stick to Chu Ho, who else could he stick to? This nominal father of his had left a very bad impression in his heart at first. It couldn't be helped that the child didn't want to get close to him. But who was Gu Jinglian? Chapter 2850. Chu Xiaobao was crying for his mother, and even Uncle Fu couldn't coax him. Gu Jinglian couldn't take it anymore and shouted, Don't cry. If you cry again, you won't be able to see her again. Chu Xiaobao sobbed and asked innocently, If I don't cry, can I see my mother? As long as you don't cry. Chu Xiaobao immediately nodded. Okay. Xiaobao won't cry. It was a promise. Gu Jinglian walked out of the bedroom and immediately ordered, Go and clean that woman up. Uncle Fu was confused when he heard this. He had just heard that an audacious woman had barged into the Gu residence. Old Master had sent this woman to the cellar. He had heard that this woman was Xiaobao's biological mother, but he hadn't had the time to find out the whole story. The woman you're talking about, could it be that you're referring to the woman you locked in the cellar? Yes. Gu Jinglian said with disgust, Xiaobao is crying for his mother. Go and clean her up. Don't get her covered in blood. Yes, I got it. Uncle Fu trembled in fear as he responded. He watched as Gu Jinglian left the room. He didn't know where he was going. Naturally, he didn't dare to ask about his whereabouts. On the way to the cellar, Uncle Fu's imagination ran wild. He wondered what kind of woman could be pregnant with Old Master's child. It should be a beautiful woman, right? Old Master kept a close eye on women. The contraceptive measures were well taken, and such things would never happen. Old Master had a bad temper, and he didn't have much patience for women. This character wasn't born this way, but had been cultivated in the Gu family since he was young. The violent environment had instilled in him an extremely sinister and perverse character. However, Uncle Fu knew that Old Master's nature wasn't bad, but he had always been the one to call the wind and summon the rain. He was used to being spoiled. If he wanted the moon in the sky, no one would dare to pluck the stars for him. Just like that, he became a man of his word. His personality was very cold, or perhaps he had a soft side, but he was stingy with his words. He would never allow himself to show too much tenderness. Firstly, it was because of his identity. He was the supreme leader of the Gu clan. As the head of the Gu clan, he had to conform to the image of this identity. Secondly, There were many pairs of eyes in the Jiyu family watching them closely. Just like the leader of a pride, only by becoming the most ruthless could he be respected by everyone. However, he was still a mortal after all. In the end, he revealed his soft-hearted side. When he walked to the cellar, the few people guarding Chu Ho saw that he had arrived. It was as if they had been granted amnesty. "Uncle Fu, you're here. What did Master say? How are they?" Uncle Fu asked first. "Uncle Fu, why don't you take a look first? Just now, he fainted again. We don't know what to do. Master said to bring him back to his room first." As Uncle Fu spoke, he walked to Chu Ho's side and lowered his body to look at her. "This person can't be dead, right?" Uncle Fu was a little worried. He saw that she was covered in wounds. Her hair was messy and covered her face. There was a pool of salt water under her body. There were 3 whip marks on her back. They were very eye-catching and her flesh was badly mutilated. This was a girl. Why was she so heavy-handed? She's still breathing, but I was a little too heavy-handed just now. I don't know. As he spoke, Uncle Fu had already flipped her over. It didn't matter if she didn't flip over. Chapter 28:51. It didn't matter if she didn't turn over. When she turned over, Uncle Fu was shocked. "Red Lotus?" He blurted out the name in shock. How could it be her? Or was she Xiao Bao's biological mother? Uncle Fu had a deep impression of this name. 5 years ago, Red Lotus had a high status in the Jiyu family. There was no other reason than that she was the closest person to Jiyu Jinglian in the entire Jiyu family, other than him. How could this be? How could Old Master allow Red Lotus to be pregnant with his child? Moreover, Red Lotus was an undercover agent of the Interpol. She was a traitor of the Jiyu family. Old Master would never allow her to live. It was unbelievable. He looked at the mess on her body again. Beside her hand, there was a letter of confirmation wet with salt water. Uncle Fu picked it up and looked at it again and again. It was a letter of confirmation about giving up custody of Xiao Bao Chu. Old Master has instructed us to use whatever method we have until she signs it. The person beside him immediately explained, "But we've already used up all our methods. This woman is very stubborn. Even in this state, she hasn't given in. Her character is indeed like that." Uncle Fu was not surprised. "All right, let's not talk about anything else. Let's carry her into the guest room first. She's so dirty. Are we going to carry her into the room directly? This is Old Master's order." Uncle Fu snorted coldly. "Are you doubting my words?" "No. Since it's Old Master's order, shouldn't we do as he says?" His subordinates did not dare to delay and immediately carried her away. Uncle Fu sent a few maids into the room. One of them was responsible for removing Chu Ho's clothes, while the other was responsible for cleaning her body and disinfecting the wounds on her body. A doctor came and examined her. He was so shocked that he kept shaking his head. Uncle Fu immediately asked what had happened. However, the doctor said, "This girl just had an operation." "What? Look at the gauze on her head. Do you see this scar? I haven't put it away properly. I haven't even removed the thread yet." The doctor paused for a moment and shook his head helplessly. The old injury plus the new injury has greatly damaged his vitality. I'm afraid he won't be able to get out of bed for at least half a month. So serious. Uncle Fu was shocked. Yes. The doctor nodded his head heavily. This lady had surgery on her head. Even though it was a minimally invasive surgery, it still damages her vitality. Looking at this scar, it probably hasn't been long since the surgery. With these new injuries, if she doesn't rest well for a while, her body will definitely collapse in the future. I got it. Uncle Fu nodded. Then prescribe some medicine for her to recuperate her body. All right. The doctor prescribed some medicine and handed it to Uncle Fu. Uncle Fu immediately sent someone to get the medicine. The Jiyu family had a pharmacy and a private medical school. They mainly focused on traditional Chinese medicine. When Jiyu Jinglian was young, his body was not in good health. He had also used traditional Chinese medicine to recuperate. Hence, Jiyu Jinglian believed in traditional Chinese medicine very much. In the entire capital, The best doctors of traditional Chinese medicine were all settled in the Jiyu family's main residence. After getting the medicine, Uncle Fu immediately sent someone to decoct it. However, Chu Ho's body was full of injuries. He was afraid that she wouldn't be able to wake up for a while. Chapter 2852. However, this coma lasted for half a month, and he did not open his eyes. Of course, this was all in the future. Ever since Chu Ho fell into a long coma, Jiyu Jinglian assigned a few people to take turns to watch over him. Xiao Bao, on the other hand, was left to the nanny to take care of. However, he did not know if the little guy was lovesick. Ever since he woke up from that nightmare, he did not eat well, and he always talked in his sleep in a daze. It was probably because he missed his mother. After all, he had never been separated from Chu Ho for such a long time. However, the sad thing was that Xiao Bao did not know that Chu Ho was lying quietly on the bed next to his room. No one knew when he would wake up. Uncle Fu invited the doctor over 3 times. After all, he had not woken up for so long, and it was not a good idea. If he continued to be in a coma, how was he going to explain it to old master? The doctor came to take a look and did a series of tests. In the end, the conclusion was also inconclusive. He only said that Chu Ho's body was severely damaged, probably because he had been suffering from old and new injuries all this time. If the human body was compared to a machine, the human body was also operated by various precise parts. For example, with the passage of time, the parts of a computer would age, and the system would become sluggish. Perhaps due to collisions during use, the internal parts would also be damaged to varying degrees. It was the same for the human body. Chu Ho had received training when he was very young. During training, it was inevitable that he would get injured. In addition, he had been constantly honed in his career as a secret agent and a criminal police officer. He had suffered countless injuries of various sizes. There were bone fractures, dagger wounds, and bullet wounds. There were 2 gunshot wounds on her back. There was a 5-centimeter scar on the side of her waist. She had been slashed by a Nepalese army knife when she was in close combat with a mercenary during a mission. At that time, she had lost a lot of blood. With her amazing willpower, she managed to survive until rescue arrived. There were too many old injuries, and her vitality was greatly damaged. Therefore, once she collapsed, she would really collapse. It would take a long time for her to recover. Uncle Fu's heart ached when he heard that. He looked at the person lying quietly on the bed, but he did not know that this girl had accumulated so many injuries. Just 1 week later, the filming for Extreme Youth was completed. After 4 months, the shooting of the 30-episode youth idol drama came to an end. After the filming of the 26th episode had just ended, the director happily announced that the copyright had been exclusively bought out by the largest video website, PPTVI. Just based on the popularity of Jiyu Xingze and Yun Shusha, the price of the broadcasting rights alone had already reached 9 figures, setting a new record. Although this kind of theme was a little unpopular, it did not affect the investors' expectations for the ratings. After all, Jiyu Xingze was the main lead in the movie, which meant that his popularity was guaranteed. Jiyu Xingze and Yun Shusha were known as the 2 most beautiful women in the entertainment industry. No matter how bad the viewership ratings were, they could still recoup their capital. If he became popular, he would be able to earn a lot of money. Because of PPTVI's exclusive buyout, many television stations were unable to fight for the simulcast rights, which was a pity. Chapter 2853. After the filming ended, the crew held a grand celebration party. In order to promote the show, the entire crew created a popular variety show. The show was called Ace Intelligence Bureau. It was an entertainment show where rising stars competed with variety shows. Once it was released, the ratings were very high. Surprisingly, Jiyu Xingze also participated in the recording of the show. Jiyu Xingze rarely accepted variety shows. Because of his celebrity status, he definitely wouldn't end a variety show that had a poor reputation and childish style. There were many high-quality variety shows, but because of the conflicting schedules, he really did not have the energy to deal with these noisy variety shows. Other than some interview shows, Ace Intelligence Bureau was probably the only variety show he accepted after The Love Diary. The script was quickly written and distributed to everyone. Variety shows had scripts. The artists on the show just had to memorize the script and know the content of each segment in advance. In this era of entertainment, even if they did not have any works or popularity, as long as they had enough variety shows and the ability to react on the spot, many A-listers could even gain a lot of passers-by through variety shows. Previously, there was a model who participated in a sports reality show. Because of her strong sense of variety, her value skyrocketed. From 200,000 yuan, her appearance fee was now in the millions. With this amazing popularity, she took on many movies and TV series. Although her acting skills were difficult to describe, it was not that she was not a professional, nor was she born to be an actress. No matter how good the director was, she did not have the aura of an actress. But even so, with the popularity she gained from variety shows, her annual income from endorsements was close to tens of millions. 8:00 p.m. All the main creators were in place and the recording of the show officially started. Every segment was very unique. After the hot opening dance, it was time for the game segment. The game segments were nothing more than games that were popular and could highlight the sense of variety and attraction. For example, 2 people and 3 people, or you draw and I guess. Although Yoon Shusha did not do many of these, she was tired of watching them. However, under the company's training, her sense of variety increased day by day. During the game, she completely threw away the burden of being an idol and fought fiercely with the other guests. One of the games was to wear a special sumo suit and play sumo in a place similar to an arena. Yoon Shusha was wearing a bloated fighting suit. She and Hua Jin were on the same team as Jiyu Xingza and another female host. She discussed it with Hua Jin and decided to work together to get rid of Jiyu Xingza. Hence, Hua Jin was in charge of charging forward. With a roar, he charged towards Jiyu Xingza, who was also wearing a sumo suit, like cannon fodder. Wow! Hua Jin roared angrily, but unexpectedly, Jiyu Xingza nimbly dodged and he missed. Jiyu Xingza leaped up and kicked Hua Jin's butt. Hua Jin was caught off guard and fell to the ground. Yoon Shusha was completely dumbfounded. This Hua Jin was too weak. Hua Jin immediately stood up and charged towards Jiyu Xingza again. Yoon Shusha did not hesitate and also charged towards Jiyu Xingza. The 3 of them were entangled together, pushing and shoving each other. Chapter 28:54. The female host, who was standing at the side, could not bear to watch this any longer. She stepped forward to help the superstar, but who knew if the superstar had done it on purpose or by accident? He lifted his leg and accidentally kicked her off the stage. Eliminated. Ha 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 ha. Everyone in the audience was rolling over in laughter. This time, it was a 2v1. Yoon Shusha grinned wickedly as she and Hua Jin besieged him together. Little did they expect that, even after losing a teammate, the superstar would still be so valiant. In just 2 minutes, he had taken down both of them. The audience was in an uproar. The viewership ratings for the gaming segment kept rising. Very soon, they took the top spot. Next up was the talent segment. The production team sent out Yoon Shusha to showcase her singing skills. Yoon Shusha sang the theme song for the drama, Lunatic. This song was composed by Jiyu Xingza and written by Yoon Shusha. As the theme song for the drama's trailer, Ace Intelligence Agency had spent a lot of effort to get this song to premiere. Yoon Shusha was a little nervous at the beginning. After all, she didn't think her singing was very good. But as the atmosphere warmed up, she gradually relaxed. All the guests were sitting on the sofa. Yoon Shusha stood in the middle of the stage, holding the microphone and singing with deep emotion. The only crazy thing I've ever done is to love you until the end of the world only until now your story there's no place for me become a hostage of my own making lose all reason at the end of the road but your paranoia your memories never have my name never leave a mark in your heart. Awake when I dream love you. I'm a lunatic missing you. I miss you hate you. I'm a lunatic but my heart hurts you don't understand I'm afraid it's too late love you one more time how lucky Amito meet you in my lifetime. The melody was beautiful and lyrical, but it was full of despair. Jiyu Xingza looked at her silently from beginning to end. Even when the song ended, He was still in a daze for a long time. He seemed to be deep in thought, but no one knew what he was thinking. Next, it was an interview. The main cast and crew sat on the sofa as the host kept asking questions about the filming. Halfway through the conversation, the host suddenly turned to Ji Xingze and asked curiously, "Xingze, you haven't been acting in TV dramas these years. Extreme Youth is probably your first comeback project after 2 years of absence from the TV industry, right?" Ji Xingze nodded lightly. The host continued asking, "Why did you take on this drama?" Another host chimed in, "I heard that Ji Xingze is also a car racer, and his driving skills are outstanding." He casually said, "Actually, this is probably my last TV series." "Oh." The host's eyes widened in surprise. "The others is. Are you planning to focus on your film career after this movie?" Ji Xingze denied, "No." "Then, why did you say that?" Ji Xingze looked up slightly and faced the camera. His lips curled into a faint smile. "Because I'm planning to officially retire from the entertainment industry." The air suddenly became quiet. Yun Shusha looked at him suddenly. There was an uproar. The audience below the stage exclaimed in surprise. Of course, the fans didn't believe it. "Liar. Chairman Ji Yu is being naughty again." Chapter 2855. Naturally, the host did not believe him and asked suspiciously, "Xingze, are you kidding me? You can't do this. You have to know that there are many of your loyal fans sitting below the stage. If you quit the entertainment industry, your fans will be scared to tears." "It's true," Ji Xingze said calmly. "In the 10 years since my debut, I have indeed won a lot of glory, but I think it's time to put an end to my 10 years. The entertainment industry is shameless and is always injecting new blood. There are many outstanding newcomers with good acting skills, but they don't have the opportunity to appear in front of the camera. I think I should give up this opportunity and give the younger generation more opportunities to perform." "No." The fans below the stage screamed uncontrollably. The scene was out of control. Many fans held up billboards and shouted Ji Xingze's name in support. The director also revealed his face from behind the camera and looked at the stage with some confusion. He was very surprised and hesitated for a moment. Now that the scene was out of control, he wondered if he should rush in with the advertisement and cut this part out. Although it was a live broadcast, there was a 10-minute time difference between what was shown on TV and what was shown on TV. This was to prevent any accidents from happening and to edit it in time. However, even the director was stunned. This sudden announcement was not part of the script. Everyone was flustered and did not know how to react. Fortunately, the host reacted quickly and immediately returned to his senses and continued the interview. "Why did you decide to quit the entertainment industry? Actually, all your fans have seen the glory you have achieved since your debut. Now that you are so popular, isn't it irrational to choose to quit the entertainment industry? In the beginning, entering the entertainment industry was just a change in life for me. I did not treat it as my entire life. However, with the rise of popularity, this job gradually became a responsibility." Ji Xingze paused and smiled slightly. He continued, "However, being in a high workload state all the time makes one feel tired. I don't get a good rest every day, so my fans want to see more of me in front of the camera. My works, my new songs, and even my advertisements. A lot of work far exceeds my workload. Being in this state for a long time is really a very negative way of life. Don't quit the entertainment industry." Many fans were so emotional that they cried. Hua Jin was also stunned. Yun Shusha felt even more conflicted and did not know how to react for a moment. She had never imagined that this program would be his farewell ceremony from the entertainment industry. Was he really going to quit the entertainment industry? Ji Xingze glanced at the audience and suddenly stood up. He walked to the front of the stage and smiled faintly at a fan who was covering her face in pain. "Don't cry, okay? Xingze, we love you." The fans were sobbing and begging him to stay. Ji Xingze laughed. "Don't be sad, okay? I'm just quitting the entertainment industry, but that doesn't mean you won't see me in the future. I'm just too tired." "Xingze," the fans cried bitterly, "don't be so tired. You don't have to accept so many draft. We are all willing to wait for you. But, without any works, artists will be outdated, Ji Xingze said helplessly. Being outdated is more painful than retiring. Chapter 2856. You'll never be out of date. You'll always be our star. You'll always be our favorite idol. Xingze. Don't make such a joke. We'll go crazy. Xingze, if you leave the industry, my heart will die. The scene became extremely sad. Even Ji Xingze, who never accepted emotional content, was teared up by the fans' passionate pleas and sorrowful tears. He turned around and slowly returned to his seat. When he turned around again, his handsome face was reflected in front of the camera. His eyes were so red that it made one's heart ache. I made this decision after much consideration. Ji Xingze sucked in a deep breath of cold air and finally said slowly, I've already booked a flight to America. I'll go back to university to pursue my postgraduate studies. With that, he put down the microphone, stood up abruptly, and left the studio resolutely. The scene was completely out of control. The fans' cries drowned out all the noise. All the main creatives of the production team looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Ever since the show was broadcast, it was the first time that it had to stop halfway because of such a sudden incident. On Weibo, netizens uploaded the edited footage of Ji Xingze's official announcement of his retirement from the entertainment industry. It quickly caused a lot of heated discussion. Ji Xingze announces his retirement from the entertainment industry. Ji Xingze's era is over. Ji Xingze's retirement from the entertainment industry has a hidden reason. Ji Xingze is unwell and announced his retirement from the entertainment industry to recuperate in America. On the internet, the fans were in an uproar because of this matter. Ji Xingze's latest Weibo post was quickly pushed to the top of the trending list. Many fans left comments to persuade their idol to stay. Many of them had become Ji Xingze's fans since they were in school. Until now, some of them had become moms, and some of them had matured and grown up. Ji Xingze had debuted for 10 years, and their fans had been around for 10 years. From the popular newbie when he first debuted to the Triphibian Heavenly King now, the name Ji Xingze was the youth of many people. One could imagine how much of a shock this news was to Ji Xingze's diehard fans. It was too sudden. He was not mentally prepared at all. This was like bad news. How painful was that? Many fans who chased after celebrities could empathize with them. When the entire cast and crew returned home, Yoon Shusha noticed that Ji Xingze had quietly left the cast and crew's group chat. She immediately called Chin Ju. Chin Ju picked up the phone and talked about this matter. Chin Ju helplessly said that he also just found out about it. Without any warning, Ji Xingze announced his withdrawal and did not mention it to anyone. Even a close friend like Chin Ju had never mentioned it to him. Why are you suddenly saying that you want to quit the entertainment industry? Yoon Shusha was puzzled. What's going on? After I found out about this, I kept calling him, but I couldn't get through. Could something have happened? Yoon Shusha could not help but worry. Chapter 2857. I understand. Yoon Shusha hung up the phone. Chin Ju told her not to care about this matter. But how could she not care and not think about it? Yoon Shusha could not help but feel upset and did not rest well the entire night. In the WeChat group, after a heated discussion, the director said, Xingze's announcement of his withdrawal from the entertainment industry is his personal decision. We have no right to interfere with how he decides his own life. Don't talk too much about it. Soon, the group was dead silent. On Weibo, the heated discussion about Ji Xingze's incident never stopped. Many fans acted as if it was the end of the world and wantonly expressed their emotions on Weibo. Many people posted their purchases of Ji Xingze's records, movies, albums, and all kinds of merchandise. Some of the posters had already turned yellow and were stained with the traces of time. Some of the records had Ji Xingze's signature written on them. Fans cried and complained that the name Ji Xingze was all her youth. She had thought that she could stay by this idol's side until the end of time. Her sentiments resonated with countless fans. Those who had never pursued an idol probably did not know how it felt. It was a feeling more painful than being heartbroken. At this time, Many keyboard warriors also appeared and wantonly accused Ji Yuxing's fans of being brainless fans. Instead of paying attention to the matter of number 8 in the Sky Palace, they actually paid attention to an entertainer. Entertainers are really ruining the country. Instead of paying attention to national affairs, they actually pay attention to a celebrity. I'm so disappointed in young people these days. I heard that Ji Yuxing's annual income is 9 figures. He's just an entertainer. How can he earn so much money? Those scientists who work hard on the front lines can't even earn 1% of this in their lifetime, right? This country is going to be finished soon, fans retorted. We can't make decisions on national affairs. But after liking Xingzi for so many years, we've received a lot of positive energy from him. He works hard and is passionate about public welfare. He's an outstanding young idol. There are too many fascinating things about him. This is irreplaceable. Loving Xingzi has become a way of life for countless of us fans. The scolding war continued to escalate. After Ji Yuxing's announced his retirement from the entertainment industry, it triggered a series of wars. Yun Shusha didn't want to pay attention to these disturbances. She put the phone on the pillow, but her mind was preoccupied. The next morning, Yun Shusha was woken up by a phone call from Xiao Shui. Shusha. It was a deafening roar. Xiao Shui cried in despair. Do you know? Xingzi announced his withdrawal from the entertainment industry. Woo 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 woo. What should I do? What should I do? I'm heartbroken. Just as Qin Ju had predicted, Ji Yuxing's held a grand press conference at 9 o'clock in the morning in the conference room of the 5-star hotel. In front of the camera, Ji Yuxing's stood on the rostrum with a calm expression. The flashlights flashed, illuminating his face with white light. I officially announce that from today onwards, I, Ji Yuxing's, will be leaving the entertainment industry. After he finished speaking, he bowed deeply. His calm expression was hidden in the shadows. The press conference was broadcasted live on different video websites. The television stations took turns to broadcast it and reported it seriously. Ji Yuxing's calm and handsome face was projected on the big screen in the mall. Chapter 2858. Many fans gathered under the big screen. When they heard this news, they covered their mouths and choked. This was probably the most morale day in the entertainment industry. 2 days after the press conference, this matter was still fermenting. Because of Ji Yuxing's matter, extreme youth suddenly became the center of attention. When the entire production team was doing promotions, only Ji Yuxing's was absent. In the face of the media's questions, all the topics revolved around Ji Yuxing's name. The entire production team was very embarrassed. All the media was targeting a lead actor who was no longer participating in any promotions. This was the most frustrating thing. There were some questions that they also wanted to answer, but what exactly were the answers? Why did Ji Yuxing's quit the entertainment industry? Even they did not have an answer. The director kept repeating, "Please don't ask questions that have nothing to do with the production. I'm sorry, I don't know." However, the media seemed to want to get to the bottom of it. Backstage, the director almost flew into a rage. Ji Yuxing's. Why are they all asking questions about him? It's not like we can interfere with a decision like quitting the entertainment industry. We have no way of knowing the reason for quitting. These media outlets really have no standards at all. When Yun Shusha heard this, her heart sank. Ji Yuxing's fans are too much. Isn't it just quitting the entertainment industry? It's like they're crying at a funeral. Look at those brainless fans at the venue. It's as if I'm the one who forced Ji Yuxing's to quit. It's so annoying. When Hua Jin heard the director's words, he felt a little uncomfortable. Crying at a funeral? Director, do you have to say such harsh words? Am I not telling the truth? The director was really angry. Why are you sticking up for him? I think it's unreasonable and too much for you to say that about senior Xing's fans. Hua Jin said, perhaps Xingzi has long had the idea of quitting the entertainment industry because of his health. When we were filming the show that day, I could tell that he didn't look too good. However, even if he wanted to quit the industry, it would have been after filming all the scenes and when the production team was wrapping up. His withdrawal from the industry had indirectly helped the production team gain popularity, but even if he has decided to quit the entertainment industry, you shouldn't say that about his fans out of basic respect. Who do you think you are? The director cursed. Hua Jin, are you trying to challenge me? Who do you think you are? You're just a gigolo who was raised as a mistress and relied on the unspoken rules to get to where you are. I say, those brainless fans, why are you blindly interfering? Get lost. You. Hua Jin was furious and glared at him. He had dug up all the old grudges and even used such malicious words against him. He was so excited that he wanted to rush forward. Yoon Shusha immediately stopped him. Hua Jin, don't be rash. Under her persuasion, Hua Jin finally managed to hold himself back. However, she turned around and suddenly walked over to the director. She stopped in front of him. Shusha, what are you doing? Before he could finish his sentence, Yoon Shusha raised her hand and slapped him across the face. Everyone couldn't help but be dumbfounded. There were many big shots who dared to challenge the director. However, Yoon Shusha was the first person to slap the director in front of everyone. She was crazy. What are you doing? The director covered his face and flew into a rage out of humiliation. Chapter 28:59. If you don't respect others, don't expect others to respect you. Then, Yoon Shusha said calmly, Director, I think Hua Jin is right. You don't have to take out your anger on Xingza's fans for the media's mistakes, and you don't have to use those despicable words to insult Hua Jin. The director gritted his teeth and glared at her. But he only dared to glare at her. Who was Yoon Shusha? Mu Yaja's wife. Just the name Mu Yaja alone was something he could not afford to offend even if there were 10 of him. Therefore, he could only swallow his anger after being slapped by her. Yoon Shusha returned to Hua Jin's side and held his hand. Let's go. Because of her slap, Hua Jin's pent-up anger dissipated a lot. After leaving the television station building, Hua Jin said a little gloomily, Actually, I feel quite disappointed when Jiyu Xingza left the entertainment industry. Disappointed? Yes, he has always been my goal. I have always regarded him as my beacon. I hope that one day, I can replace him and become a popular idol. However, I feel quite disappointed when he leaves the entertainment industry. Yoon Shusha's lips twitched. You can't surpass him. Everyone can't be replaced. Moreover, he is the idol of the Triphibian Heavenly King. Just by singing, he can crush you to death. You can't sing well, so how can you compare to him? He has won an international music award. What about you? You have to rely on post-production tuning to sing the theme song. Hua Jin pouted. Stop talking. His heart ached. The video of Jiyu Xingza's press conference was broadcasted through various channels and presented to the public. He was the symbol of an era. His 10 years had been incomparably glorious. Fans had fantasized about accompanying him through his second decade and third decade. However, they suddenly received the news of his departure. All the fans were devastated by this shocking news. Their overly fanatical behavior caused the other netizens to be dissatisfied. They began to denounce these diehard fans on a large scale. The internet was in a mess. Yoon Shusha didn't know how she felt about this matter. However, the feeling of loss stayed with him for a few days. After bidding farewell to Hua Jin, she slowly walked along the street aimlessly. However, little did she know that a black car was slowly following behind her. She was so immersed in her own thoughts that she didn't realize that there was a car following closely behind her. His phone suddenly rang. Yoon Shusha picked up her phone and saw Jiyu Xingza's name on the screen. Xingza. What's wrong with him? Disregarding her doubts, she quickly picked up the call and placed the phone to her ear. Jiyu Xingza's calm and gentle voice could be heard from the other end. Shusha, it's me. Yoon Shusha was stunned. She stopped in her tracks and froze on the spot. It had been a long time since he had called her by her name. Perhaps it was because calling her Shusha was too intimate and ambiguous. Hence, he had always called her by her full name. Now, this sudden gentle call had really caught her off guard. Xingza, are you on the street? Jiyu Xingza heard some noises and car horns on the other end of the line and guessed that she was on the streets. Yeah. Yoon Shusha said, I saw the live broadcast of your press conference. Chapter 2860. I saw the live broadcast of your press conference. Huh. You really have the heart to do that. Yoon Shusha looked around. Coincidentally, there was a big screen in the shopping mall not far from her. On the screen, Ji Yuxing's announcement of his retirement from the entertainment industry was still being played. Below the screen, there was a circle of fans. Even though there was a distance between them, Yoon Shusha knew that the eyes of these fans must be filled with tears. Your fans really can't bear for you to quit. Yoon Shusha sighed. You might be a little too heartless. Why did you quit the entertainment industry? There's no reason. I'm just tired of living in front of the camera. Regarding this topic, Ji Yuxingza did not delve too much into it. He changed the topic. Shusha, can we meet? As if he was afraid that she would reject him, he smiled and said, this is probably the last time we'll see each other. What do you mean? He said, my flight is at 1 in the morning. After tonight, I will return to America and never come back. Although she was mentally prepared, when she heard Ji Yuxingza say that he would never come back, she felt a little suffocated. Shusha. Ji Yuxingza took a deep breath. I want to see you. Even if we don't say anything, I want to see you for the last time. Yoon Shusha also took a deep breath. She looked up at the starry sky and asked, where are you? I'm at the office. I just signed a bunch of agreements. Ji Yuxingza said again, where are you? Tell me, I'll go and find you. I'm in the city center now. But there are too many people here. It's not convenient for you, right? With Ji Yuxingza's national recognition, even if he was fully armed, he would be recognized in a matter of minutes if he walked on the streets. Yoon Shusha tried to get his opinion. Do you know the park at Hushin Island? Yes. Are you driving? Yes, I'll drive. I'll wait for you at the car park at Hushin Island. Okay. After hanging up the phone, Yoon Shusha immediately walked to the side of the street and flagged down a car. A taxi stopped beside her and she immediately got in. The driver glanced at her and stepped on the accelerator. Then, he realized what was going on and suddenly slammed on the brakes. What's wrong? Yoon Shusha turned pale with fright. She was startled by the sudden braking. You are that. The driver thought hard for a while. The TV drama that my wife has been following recently is called Lethal Beauty. You're the second female lead in it, right? It's that bad woman. My wife hated you at first. But after watching some of your variety shows, I fell in love with you again. Looking at her up close, she really is a beautiful lady. Yoon Shusha smiled awkwardly. I didn't expect my luck to be so good today. I picked up a superstar. Superstar, can I have your autograph? Okay, but you have to drive me to my destination first. Oh, okay. The driver was so excited that he didn't even turn on the meter and just slammed on the accelerator. Along the way, the traffic lights were congested. The driver suddenly glanced at the rear mirror and made a TSK sound. The Lexus has been following us all the way. Maybe it's a coincidence. Yoon Shusha said casually. The driver said half-jokingly, could it be the paparazzi? Why are there so many paparazzi following us every day? Yoon Shusha didn't think much of it. Chapter 2861. However, when time came to a standstill, countless thoughts rushed into her mind. Yoon Shusha could not help but recall everything that had happened between her and Ji Yuxingza. Scenes flashed before her eyes like a merry-go-round. Unknowingly, her eyes turned red. He said that he was going to America and would not be coming back. In other words, tonight would be the last time they met. She actually felt a little reluctant to part with him. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, her phone rang again. She picked up her phone, thinking that it was a call from Ji Yuxingza. Unexpectedly, it was a video call from Gong Jie. Yoon Shusha was stunned. Looking at the time, it was already late. Why would he call at this hour? On second thought, due to the time difference, it was probably still daytime over at Xiao Jie's place. Perhaps something had happened. She picked up the video call. On the other end, Gong Jie's handsome face was reflected on the screen. However, his expression was very serious and even a little nervous. Shou Jie, what's wrong? Why do you look so nervous? Gong Jie did not bother with pleasantries and went straight to the point. Sis, uncle can speak now. What? Yoon Shusha turned pale with fright and stood up abruptly. You're saying that dad can speak now? Yes. Gong Jie was also greatly encouraged, but he still frowned. I told him that it wasn't easy for him to recover the function of his vocal cords. He must pay attention to his recuperation, but he insisted on talking to you. No. Yoon Shusha was resolute. He can't speak immediately after recovering the function of his vocal cords. Let him recover completely first before we talk about it. I advised him that, too, but he didn't listen at all. Gong Jie said solemnly, Sis, you should talk to him. Perhaps your words will be more persuasive. All right, let me see him. Yoon Shusha also missed him. Gong Jie froze the video call. Then, he got someone to carry Yoon Yeching into a wheelchair and pushed it over. As soon as Yoon Yeching's figure was reflected on the screen, Gong Jie gently said a few words to him. Yoon Yeching immediately understood and looked at the phone. Knowing that the other side of the phone was his beloved daughter, he opened his mouth to speak in an unbelievably hoarse voice. Shusha. Daddy has caused you to suffer. Dad. Yoon Shusha furrowed her brows as tears welled up in her eyes. She quickly said, Dad, don't talk so much. It wasn't easy for you to recover the function. Be careful of your sister. Yoon Yeching ignored her advice and squeezed out these words with much difficulty while holding onto the wheelchair. Yoon Shusha was completely stunned. Sister. Yoon. She. Is not dead. His voice was as rough and broken as gravel, but even though he was speaking with great difficulty, she still understood what he was trying to convey. Yoon Na, she's not dead. Dad, how did you know? Because, the person who attacked me that night was her. Yoon Yeching seemed to have prepared a script as he said agitatedly, It was her who destroyed me with sulfuric acid. She will definitely look for you. You must be careful. Yoon Shusha's face instantly turned ghastly pale as her lips trembled. How? How is that possible? How could she do such a cruel thing to you? Chapter 2862. Just as she finished speaking, she suddenly felt a car slowly approaching from behind. The ground beneath her feet was instantly illuminated by the high-beam headlights, turning it as bright as a white carpet. The low rumble of the car's engine rose and fell continuously. Yoon Shusha's heart skipped a beat. She turned around stiffly and saw a black Lexus parked quietly not far away. The car's high-beam headlights were extremely dazzling. The light suddenly changed, and in an instant, her eyes were as bright as the aurora. Yoon Shusha could not open her eyes because of the blinding light. She could not help but raise her hand to shield her eyes. She subconsciously staggered backward, only to see the car release its brakes and step on the accelerator, speeding toward her. Yoon Shusha hurriedly retreated and wanted to avoid it. Suddenly, a man's steady voice came from behind. Shusha, be careful. Immediately after, a figure pounced on her. It was Jiyu Xingze. When he pounced on her, he did not forget to use his arms to protect her. Hence, even when the two of them fell to the ground, she fell into his arms and did not collide directly with the ground because of his protection. Her phone, however, did not escape being crushed by the car's wheels and was directly crushed. The car brushed past the two of them and stopped very quickly. Immediately after, a woman got out of the car. Yoon Shusha turned around abruptly and saw that the woman was wearing a simple outfit that was as black as ink. However, under her short hair, her face was extremely ugly and covered with hideous scars. Even so, Yoon Shusha could still recognize her at a glance. Based on her facial features, this woman was Yoon Na. It turned out that she was in the Lexus that had been following her all this while. Yoon Shusha shuddered at the thought of this. She then thought of Yoon Yeching's words earlier. Yoon Na is not dead. She destroyed me with sulfuric acid. Yoon Shusha reacted to everything at once. She raised her head abruptly and glared fiercely at her, crying with every word. Yoon Na, it's you. You're the one who harmed Dad. Shut up. Yoon Na said coldly, he's not my dad. I'm not Yoon Na, too. You, Yoon Shusha, tonight is the day you die. Yoon Na didn't make any long-winded speech. Her goal was very simple. Kill her and Yoon Shusha. Then, more than half of her hatred would be satisfied. She originally wanted to find that child to avenge her humiliation. After all, that child called Yu was the real culprit who had harmed her. But on second thought, compared to killing a person, making that person lose the person they loved the most was the cruelest punishment. If Yo-Yo lost his mother, wouldn't that be hell on earth? With this thought in mind, Yoon decided to get rid of Yoon Shusha. As for Ji Xingze, since he had interfered, then he would be dealt with as well. Yoon suddenly took out a gun and loaded it skillfully. She raised her hand and aimed the black muzzle at her. There was no need to be sloppy when it came to killing people, and there was no need for so much nonsense. She would not give Yoon Shusha any chance to escape. She would not give this man a chance to breathe either. Fast, accurate, and ruthless. Kill them all. Yoon sneered. The cold muzzle was aimed at her glabella. The moment she pulled the trigger, Ji Xingze reacted faster than her. He pushed Yoon Shusha away abruptly and rolled on the ground himself. The bullets hit the ground, sending sparks flying and smoke curling up. Chapter 2863. Yoon wanted to aim at him again, but Ji Xingze suddenly bounced up from the ground and rushed toward her without hesitation. With a beautiful roundhouse kick, he sent the pistol in her hand flying far away. Ah! Yoon groaned in pain. She immediately hugged her wrist, her face contorted in pain. It hurts. Ji Xingze's roundhouse kick had broken her wrist. She gripped her wrist tightly. When she looked up again, her eyes were already bloodshot. Every single one of you is protecting her. Are you all her dogs? Is there a need to be so loyal? Even if you have to die for her, are you not afraid? Yoon Shusha gritted her teeth. From the corner of her eye, she saw another person getting out of the car. She immediately turned her head and saw a man in black suddenly crouching down and walking quickly toward Ji Xingze. Yoon wasn't the only one here. Yoon wasn't the only one in the car. There were others. Oh no. Yoon Shusha immediately blurted out, Xingze, be careful. Ji Xingze heard her shout and was a little distracted. When he turned around, Yoon immediately pulled out a sharp dagger from her waist. She pulled it out of the scabbard, held the handle tightly, and stabbed him viciously in the back. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Ji Xingze was caught off guard and was stabbed by the dagger. He immediately arched his body. From the corner of his eye, he saw another man in black immediately walk over. He reached out and quietly grabbed his throat, dragged him to the side, and punched him hard in the chest. Cough. Ji Xingze was numb from the pain from this punch. He frowned and the veins on his forehead popped out. The man quickly restrained him, grabbed him by the throat, and pinned him high against the wall. Yoon rushed over without thinking. Holding the dagger, she ruthlessly stabbed him in the abdomen again. Ah! No, no! Yoon Shusha was so frightened by this cruel scene that she was speechless. Her mind went blank, but she forced herself to regain her senses. From the corner of her eye, she suddenly saw the pistol that had been kicked aside by Ji Xingze. She hurriedly crawled over and held the pistol tightly with trembling hands. She had never held a pistol before, so she didn't know how to use the heavy metal object in her hand. What to do? What to do? Yoon Shusha was so anxious that her face turned pale, and her forehead was covered with cold sweat. At that moment, Yoon stabbed him again. When she suddenly pulled out the dagger, it was dripping with blood. Stop! Yoon Shusha screamed and rushed over. She clumsily aimed the gun at the man's feet and pulled the trigger. Because Yoon had already loaded the gun, the bullet flew out quickly. In the blink of an eye, the bullet hit the man's leg. The man staggered and knelt on one knee. Bang! Bang! She fired 2 more shots at his back. Yoon saw that she had a gun in her hand and was about to rush toward her. Yoon Shusha, I'll kill you. Go to hell for me. Seeing her rush over, Yoon Shusha trembled and held the gun tightly. She broke down and said, You're the one who should go to hell. Bang! Bang! The bullet shot through Yoon's other intact wrist and penetrated her flesh. The other bullet lost its center of gravity and made a hole in the wall. Yoon's dagger fell to the ground. Yoon Shusha, you, she couldn't believe it. She didn't expect that Yoon Shusha could hit the target on her first try. Chapter 2864. She had practiced for a long time to learn how to use a pistol. Yoon Na was in so much pain that she could no longer move her hands. Like a walking corpse, she rushed toward her and slammed her to the ground. Yoon Shusha wanted to pull the trigger again, but she realized that there were no more bullets. This pistol only had 6 bullets. She was shocked and panicked. Yoon Na was on top of her. Because she was angry from embarrassment, she opened her mouth and bit down hard on her shoulder like a mad dog. Ah! Yoon Shusha groaned in pain and broke out in a cold sweat. She suddenly reached out and strangled Yoon Na's neck. She was on the verge of losing her mind. She did not care about those so-called scruples and used her fingers to crush Yoon Na's eyeballs. Because of the enormous pain, Yoon Na let out a shrill cry hysterically, and she actually rolled over to the side. She was too anxious. She was too anxious to get rid of Yoon Shusha. Instead, she was flustered because of this. Yoon Shusha immediately got up from the ground and pounced on her again. She used her hands to strangle her ruthlessly. Angry and desperate, she shouted at the top of her lungs, "Yoon Na, why are you so cruel?" Yoon Na was choked until she could not breathe. Her entire head was red because of the lack of oxygen in her brain. Her eyes bulged and her veins popped out. Yoon Shusha gritted her teeth and said, "I hate you. I hate you. You're the one who destroyed this family. You deserve to die. The one who deserves to die is not me, it's you. You're the one who caused Dad to be like that. He's your biological father. How can you treat him so cruelly? He's not." Yoon Na screamed in despair, "He's not my father. He's not. Yoon Shusha, you took away everything that belonged to me. Even if I go to hell one day, I want you to be buried with me." When Yoon Shusha thought of Yoon Yeching's miserable state, she hated this detestable and evil woman even more. She tightened her grip on Yoon Na's throat and exerted more force. She wanted to kill her. Even if she was sentenced to break the law, she would not hesitate. This woman is crazy. If he didn't kill her, she would kill him and Xingzhe. She absolutely couldn't tolerate her hurting Xingzhe again. Yoon Shusha and Yoon Na were in a fierce confrontation. Behind them, the man in black finally got up from the ground. He had been shot in the knee, and one of his legs had lost its support. However, when he saw that Yoon Na was at a disadvantage, he immediately turned around and returned to the car. He opened the trunk and took out a silver handgun. The man turned around. Under the moonlight, the gun glinted coldly and attracted Ji Yuxing's attention. It was a gun. He followed the man's gaze and realized that he was closing in on Yoon Shusha. He gradually raised his right hand, swiftly loaded the gun, and put his index finger on the trigger. No. Without a second thought, Ji Yuxing's ignored the blood flowing out of his abdomen and back. Just as the man raised his gun and pulled the trigger, Ji Yuxing's pounced on him. Ooh! The man was caught off guard and was pushed to the ground by Ji Yuxing's. However, the trigger had already been pulled, but the bullet's trajectory suddenly deviated. Originally, if the shot had not deviated, the bullet should have pierced through the back of Yoon Shusha's head. However, because of Ji Yuxing's interference, the bullet hit the car window beside Yoon Shusha. Bang! A loud sound was heard. The car alarm sounded. Chapter 2865. The glass shattered. The flying glass cut her cheeks and exposed her skin. Finally, the glass shards pierced Yoon Shusha's eyes. The eyes were the weakest part of a human being. When the glass shards pierced her eyes, the piercing pain made her cry out in pain. Because of the sharp object piercing her eyes, Yoon Shusha felt a piercing pain in her eyes. Her whole body fell backward. Her eyes hurt. After the whole world spun around, her head hit the concrete floor heavily. Her eyes were shaking from the pain. Then, she seemed to feel the glass from the car window falling on her body. Shusha. She seemed to hear Ji Yuxing's calling her name, but she couldn't hear what he was shouting. The pain seemed to have taken over all her consciousness. So painful, her eyes hurt. Yoon Shusha panicked. She touched her eyelids with trembling hands. Her fingertips touched a patch of warm blood that stained her eyelashes. It flowed down her cheeks and stained her clothes. She endured the searing pain and opened her eyes a little. Her vision was blurred by blood, as if covered by a layer of red fog. It was so hazy that she couldn't see anything. She could only vaguely distinguish the glaring light. I can't see anything, Yun Shusha choked with sobs. Jiyu Xingze frowned and gritted his teeth. He grabbed the dagger from the ground with difficulty. The man behind him wanted to get up and make a final struggle. However, Jiyu Xingze didn't give him the chance to do so. Fart. The dagger pierced into his chest. That was where his heart was. Jiyu Xingze knew very well that this dagger had pierced into his chest. He didn't want to get up. The man's eyes widened in disbelief as he was stabbed in the chest. His face instantly became distorted as he looked at the man covered in blood in disbelief. He had been stabbed so many times, but he still had so much strength. To actually stab the dagger so deeply, the man immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. This slash was almost destructive. His entire body collapsed on the 3rd floor. His eyes were wide open in anger and he no longer struggled. Jiyu Xingze stood up and staggered over to Yun Shusha's side to help her up. However, when he exerted a little force, it affected the location of the wound, and blood gushed out again. Yun Shusha shrieked in fright when she felt someone touching her. Jiyu Xingze immediately coaxed her gently. Shusha, don't be afraid. It's me, Xingze. He held back the sweet taste in his throat and glanced at Yun Na, who was unconscious on the ground. He said to her, let's go to the hospital. Before he could finish his words, his legs went soft and he almost fell to his knees. When Yun Shusha heard his voice, she endured the pain and groped around aimlessly. Finally, she found his hand. She immediately grasped his hand tightly. Xingze, how are you? Are you seriously injured? Did you lose a lot of blood? No, Jiyu Xingze endured the pain and gritted his teeth. He pretended to smile calmly and said, I'm fine. Yun Shusha didn't believe him. She rubbed his body, but he held her hand instead. Your eyes are injured. Let's go to the hospital, okay? Okay, Yun Shusha touched her face in pain. When she touched the sticky blood, she became even more flustered. She couldn't see anything. Chapter 2866. Seeing that she was flustered, Jiyu Xingze hugged her gently to calm her down. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Everything will be fine, he said calmly. Everything will be fine, okay? Don't be afraid. The two of them stood up while leaning against each other. Yun Shusha couldn't see and had lost her sense of direction. She could only use all her strength to put Jiyu Xingze's arm on her shoulders and try her best to support all his weight. Jiyu Xingze hugged her shoulders. He knew deep down that this idiot must have wanted to use his body to support her. However, she was also severely injured. He couldn't bear to let her bear all his weight. He really couldn't bear to let her bear all his weight. Hence, he shifted his weight to the other side. He hugged her with one hand and covered his bleeding wound with the other. He slowly walked towards the intersection. Yun Shusha couldn't see. Because she couldn't see how pale his face was at this moment. His face was pale and covered in cold sweat. Especially his originally rosy lips. They had lost all color due to excessive blood loss. And because she couldn't see at all how gentle Jiyu Xingze's gaze was on her at this moment. It was a gentleness that was engraved in his bones. If he could, he wanted to look at her as much as possible. He wanted to imprint her features deeply into his bones and blood. If he could, he wanted time to stop right here and now. He wanted to look at her quietly until he got tired of looking at her. If he could, he wanted to go back to the day when they first met. He would definitely hug her tightly in his arms. When that man appeared, he would take over her entire heart. Jiyu Xingze's lips suddenly trembled. Looking at Yun Shusha's side profile as she endured the pain, he couldn't bear to let her go just like that. For a moment, his eyes were filled with tears and they were red. Shusha, before I came, I thought of countless parting words. Jiyu Xingze tried his best to widen his eyes and force back his tears. His Adam's apple bobbed, and the corners of his lips curled up. He smiled and said, I want to wish you happiness. I wish you happiness forever, but I selfishly think that I might not be able to be generous, to wish you happiness. Yun Shusha's expression suddenly froze. How I wish that you couldn't live without me. Xingzi, I like you. Jiyu Xingzi endured the pain and his voice was as soft as the wind. I really like you. Cough. He tried his best to force a smile. I love it so much. This was the first time in his life that he loved someone so deeply. He couldn't accept this. He couldn't accept this. For the first time in his life, he wanted to obtain someone, but after exhausting everything, he still couldn't obtain her. However, no matter how unwilling he was, I still want you to be happy. Jiyu Xingzi muttered. Shusha, do you know? I want to be generous and wish you happiness, but I also selfishly hope that you'll never be happy for me. But if you're lonely, I can't bear it. Yun Shusha suddenly felt the weight on one of her shoulders collapse. Her shoulder was suddenly empty, and she heard a heavy sound. It was the sound of someone falling to the ground. Xingzi. Yun Shusha was so scared that she cried, Xingzi, where are you? Chapter 2867. Xingzi, where are you? She immediately squatted down and desperately searched until she found an arm. She crawled over along the arm and hugged Jiyu Xingzi in her arms with heartache. Tears kept flowing from her eyes and dripped onto his body along with blood. Xingzi, don't scare me. Don't scare me. She was so shocked that she was flustered. It was as if the whole world had collapsed. She shouldn't have accepted his appointment. She should have rejected him cruelly. That way, even if he was disappointed, he could have safely boarded the plane to America and not ended up like this. She was wrong. Oh God. She knew she was wrong. She really knew she was wrong. Could she rewind time? Could she rewind time? She didn't want anything to happen to him. Shusha, Jiyu Xingzi's breathing suddenly quickened. He opened his eyes and looked up at her. Seeing her crying, his heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. Don't cry, Xingzi, don't scare me. It's okay. Jiyu Xingzi smiled gently and coaxed her softly. I don't care about life and death anymore. He had depression, so he didn't care about death. From the beginning to the end, he had locked himself in his own world. The only light he saw was her, but he didn't hold on to it firmly. In this world, the only thing he couldn't care less about was her tears. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Yun Shusha cried bitterly. Let's exchange, okay? I'll exchange my life for yours. Please, don't die. You can't die. Don't leave me so cruelly. Will you forget me? Jiyu Xingzi asked with difficulty. When Yun Shusha heard this, tears welled up in her eyes. He continued to ask stubbornly, if I die, will you remember me for a second? Yun Shusha was very sad and deliberately provoked him. If you die, I'll definitely forget you. The more I forget, the better. So, when Jiyu Xingzi heard this, he laughed softly and interrupted her. Yes, that would be best. Yun Shusha was stunned. When Jiyu Xingzi heard that she was going to forget about him, there was a sense of loss and comfort in his eyes. He was disappointed because she said that she wanted to forget about him. Comforting, like this, what was left for her was not those painful memories. I also don't want to leave you with sad memories. Jiyu Xingzi's eyelids became heavier and heavier. His face lost all its luster and became extremely gloomy, but he still tried to smile. Forget me. It would be best. His eyelashes gradually drooped. His fair hand suddenly slipped from her palm and hung limply to the side. The air suddenly became deathly still. In his ears, it was as if the line of death had been drawn. She could no longer hear any sound, and she could no longer feel any warmth or undulations from his body. She could only feel that his body was gradually losing its warmth, and it was becoming increasingly cold. Xingzi. She forced a smile and gently touched his cold face, trying her best to pull the corner of his lips. Xingzi, can you talk to me? I want to talk to you. I'm scared. I'm really scared, liar. Yun Shusha furrowed her eyebrows. Didn't you say that with you around, I don't need to be afraid? But, why did you leave me behind? Jiyu Xingzi did not react at all, let alone make a sound. Chapter 2868. Jiyu Xingzi did not react at all. His eyelids were slightly closed, and his expression was calm. However, he was like an empty shell, so empty that there was no trace of life. No, she finally began to panic. She groped around and held his face, pressing her forehead against his cheek. However, she could only feel his cold temperature. "Xingze, don't. I beg you, don't leave me," she begged in despair. Using all her strength, she hugged his shoulders tightly, trying to transfer all her body temperature to him. "Xingze, I was lying to you just now," Yun Shusha said in pain. "I was lying to you. I wanted you to live well. I was lying to you. I was lying to you. I won't forget you. How could I bear to forget you?" Memories flashed through her mind like a revolving lantern. When they first met, he smiled and sized her up. His beautiful eyes were slightly curved, and a warm smile appeared on his face. "You're so clean and beautiful. Why did you become the assistant of a small-time model? How useless. You're much prettier than her. If you enter the entertainment industry, you'll definitely be popular. Your temperament is just right for the female lead in my heart." Yun Shusha could no longer hold back her heart-wrenching sadness. She burst into tears and hugged his cold body in a sorry state, crying like a desperate child. I like you so much. I like you so much." Jiyu Xingze's smile was still vivid in her mind. At Huanyu's annual cocktail party, he led her to the dance floor. He was dressed in a suit. He leaned over slightly to her and made an inviting gesture, like an elegant and noble gentleman. "May I have a dance with you?" He smiled. His teeth were pure white and extremely charming. Life felt like the first time they met. Yun Shusha gritted her teeth and hugged his head that had no center of gravity. Tears gushed out like a fountain. She tried her best to open her eyes wide, wanting to take a good look at him. However, the wider her eyes were, the deeper the pain. In the end, all she could see was a blood-red blur. She could not see anything clearly. "No," Yun Shusha cried helplessly. "Let me take a good look at you. Xingze, let me take a good look at you. I can't see anything." Yun Shusha grabbed his collar tightly. The pain was so great that her soul was about to shatter. "Xingze." She called his name in despair, and her cries echoing in the huge parking lot. "Shusha." In the darkness, a tall figure walked towards her. Yun Shusha opened her eyes abruptly, only to see the superstar's gentle smile. "Xingze." She was excited and hugged him. "You're not dead. You're not dead." She was so happy that her words were all jumbled up. She only knew how to repeat the same sentence. Her heart ached as she hugged him tightly. I think I Xingze, I really think you leave, I really think I swear." Yun Shusha's tears flowed uncontrollably. "Don't make such jokes again. Use. You leave me, you leave Shusha. Shusha." Jiyu Xingze calmed her down. His warm hand gently caressed her hair. He smiled and said, "I'm leaving." "You're leaving?" "Yes." "Where are you going?" "To a place very far away." Jiyu Xingze's tone was relaxed. This is probably a form of relief. To him, the pain of living and falling into darkness forever was a form of relief. Chapter 2869. Meeting you is the luckiest thing in my life. But meeting you has already exhausted all my luck. Jiyu Xingze smiled faintly. "But I don't regret it." "But, I don't regret it." Jiyu Xingze suddenly turned around and looked back with a smile. "I'm leaving." "No." Yun Shusha immediately got up and chased after him desperately. "Xingze, don't go." However, Jiyu Xingze seemed to not hear her voice. His back view gradually disappeared from her sight. She used all her strength to chase after him, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not catch up with him. Yun Shusha woke up in the darkness and opened her eyes wide. Through her blurry vision, she could vaguely feel a strong light shining down from the top of her head. It's okay." The surroundings were noisy, and the voices of people were clamoring. Two people carefully carried her onto the stretcher. Be careful of her hand, don't crush it." In the middle of the night, the flashing lights of the police cars and ambulances were dazzling. In the long corridor of the hospital, the cold lights flashed past. The doctors and nurses were anxiously pushing the ambulance bed to the operating theater without stopping for a moment. Yun Shusha lay on the operating table with her eyes tightly closed. The piercing pain almost made her suffocate. She could vaguely make out the dejected cries of a family member among the chaotic voices around her. Then, in her daze, she heard a familiar voice. Shusha. Shusha. It was him. It hurts, she could not see anything. She reached out and was quickly held tightly by a pair of big hands. Mu Yaja pretended to be calm and called her name softly. Shusha, it's me. Before he could finish speaking, the nurse pushed him aside. Sorry, sir, please wait outside the operating theatre. After that, a group of medical staff hurriedly pushed Yun Shusha into the operating room. Mu Yaja stood at the entrance of the operating theatre. Behind him, Hua Jin rushed over with Yo-Yo in his arms. Xiao Ichen ran the fastest. He rushed to the entrance of the operating theatre and raised his head. When he saw the operating theatre light on, he gasped. Mommy. He walked to the door in a panic and peeked through the crack. Hua Jin immediately asked, Brother-in-law, what happened to elder sister? We still don't know what's going on. Sister, her eyes were injured. I've already sent someone to investigate the details. Previously, he had sent bodyguards for her, but according to the news, she had followed the crew to the TV station for an event, and then the crew was responsible for sending her home. Hence, they did not follow her. Furthermore, nothing unexpected had happened all this while. They let down their guard a little. Yun Shusha also said that there was nothing special, so they didn't follow her anymore. Thus, they were on standby. Excuse me, are you the victim's family member? The doctor's trembling voice came from the emergency room not far away. Mu Yaja turned around and saw Jiyu Jinglian standing at the door of the emergency room. His expression was gloomy and his aura was terrifying. In the middle of the night, he had received a call saying that Jiyu Xingze was in trouble. He rushed over. Along the way, he felt that it was inconceivable. Trouble? How could it be? Didn't he go out for something? Chapter 2870. He said that he would not come back after returning to America. Jiyu Jingze had wanted to send him off, but he said that he wanted to see the most important person in his final moments. Then, he disappeared without a trace. Jiyu Jingze did not expect to receive such news in the middle of the night when he waited for his return. He rushed to the hospital and arrived at the emergency room. The doctor asked him if he was the victim's family member. The victim? Jiyu Jinglian's face darkened. Where is he? He's in the emergency room. We've already tried to resuscitate him, but he lost his vital signs on the way. There's nothing we can do to save him, the doctor said regretfully. Jiyu Jinglian did not believe him. How is that possible? Quack, could you have made a mistake? The doctor felt wronged. Even so, he explained in a low voice, how could I have made a mistake? The victim was a very popular celebrity when he was alive. He was a popular idol. You didn't see how the nurses in the emergency room were crying so hard. Jiyu Xingze had lost all signs of life on the way to the hospital. Some of the medical staff recognized him in the ambulance. This nurse happened to be Jiyu Xingze's fan. When she saw this scene, she was stunned as if she had been struck by lightning. It was unbelievable. The idol who had announced to the public that he was quitting the entertainment industry just a day ago was now a cold body. When Jiyu Xingze was sent to the emergency room, many nurses swarmed over. Oh my God! Oh my God! Isn't this Xingze? My eyes must be playing tricks on me. Or maybe. Am I dreaming? The emergency room was filled with cries. No one could believe that Jiyu Xingze was dead. She left this world coldly and desolately. But the most heart-wrenching thing was not his departure. It was when the doctor announced that the resuscitation was futile. When the nurses cleaned his wounds, they found that he was covered in wounds and blood. Not only did he leave alone, but he also left in great pain. Even if they weren't Jiyu Xingze's fans, their eyes turned red from sadness at such a bleak scene. Get out of my way. Jiyu Jinglian lost his patience and pushed him away. He kicked the door open and barged in. The door was kicked wide open. Jiyu Jinglian walked in and was surprised to find a body covered tightly by a white cloth on a hospital bed in the emergency room. The nurses hugged each other and burst into tears. Jiyu Jinglian could not help but feel annoyed. He shouted angrily, "Get out of here." A few nurses were shocked by his angry and cold expression. Under the doctor's eye signal, they left the room in groups. In the spacious resuscitation room, there was only a lonely bed left. All kinds of medical instruments were piled up at the side. At the foot of the bed, there were many blood-stained and cut clothes. Jiyu Jinglian walked over to the bed. He did not believe that the person under the white cloth was Jiyu Xingze. He could not help but reach out, pinch a corner of the white bedsheet, and lift it up. Wow! Jiyu Xingze's pale and handsome face came into view. Jiyu Jinglian's eyes widened slightly. He lost focus for a moment and his pupils contracted. He was so shocked by this scene that his heart stopped beating for a moment. Xingze, was he really dead? He was in disbelief. Chapter 2871. Uncle Fu also walked over. When he saw Jiyu Xingze on the bed, his eyes instantly turned red. What? What happened? He was fine. Why did he? It wasn't that he didn't have feelings for Jiyu Xingze. Uncle Fu had served Jiyu Liancheng wholeheartedly in the Jiyu family. After Jiyu Liancheng passed away, he started serving Jiyu Jinglian. However, his heart was incomparably gentle. His heart ached for Jiyu Xingze and he pitied him. Jiyu Xingze had lived in the Jiyu family for a period of time. At that time, only Uncle Fu could get close to him. Since he was young, Xingze's personality had been more introverted. He rarely interacted with outsiders and always sealed himself in his own world. He liked to hide in the study room and read quietly or flip through comics. The only person who could communicate with him was probably Uncle Fu. From the beginning to the end, very few people could enter his heart. Once they entered, they couldn't leave. He was obsessed with love. In Uncle Fu's eyes, although this child looked cold, he valued love more than his life. He looked at Jiyu Xingze's pale face and couldn't help but cry. He quickly wiped it away with his hand. Young Master Xingze, how could this be? Mu Yaja also walked into the emergency room. He had only planned to wait outside the operating theater for his wife. When he found out about this, he rushed over but only saw Yun Shusha lying on the operating table, covered in blood. He didn't know if the blood on her clothes was hers or someone else's, especially her eyes, which were filled with blood. When he saw it, his heart felt like it was being stabbed. What was the feeling of heartache? He wished he could take the pain for her. The eyes were the most vulnerable part of a person. The doctor said that there were many small glass shards in her eyes, which caused the corneal hemorrhage. Glass shards? How did these damned things get into her eyes? Mu Yaja really couldn't figure it out, but he didn't have time to investigate. He only cared about accompanying her by the bed. At that time, she was unconscious, but she kept mumbling as if she was talking nonsense. He leaned closer to listen, but he couldn't hear clearly. When she finally woke up and opened her eyes, she was pushed into the operating theater. Mu Yaja could only force himself to calm down. If he lost his composure, the situation would be completely out of control. Right now, he had to guard her until she left the operating theater safely. He didn't care about her eyes or whether she would lose her vision. He only wanted her to live well. Even if she could no longer see, he would do everything in his power to make her see again. However, Mu Yaja saw Uncle Fu's his eyebrows. But when he heard him, he heard Uncle Fu's sorrowful voice, "Young master." His eyebrows twitched, and he vaguely suspected something, so he walked to the resuscitation room. However, he saw such a desolate scene. Jiyu Xingze lay on the hospital bed with a pale face. To be precise, this was an empty shell without any soul control. It was cold without any temperature. His body was already cold. His limbs were also gradually stiffening. His handsome face was stained with blood, but it was strangely calm. It was as if he had just fallen asleep. Normally, after suffering so many injuries, an ordinary person's expression would be extremely ferocious before they died. However, he was exceptionally gentle and quiet, as if he had left without any pain. Chapter 2872. He had never thought that the two of them would meet under such circumstances. Jiyu Jinglian sized him up and asked expressionlessly, "Why are you here? What happened to him?" Mu Yaja asked instead of answering. Jiyu Jinglian lowered his gaze and glanced at Jiyu Xingze. His expression was covered with a layer of ice. He's dead. He left peacefully. He had originally thought that he would not be affected by any accident that Jiyu Xingze had caused. However, he did not expect that when this family member left, Jiyu Jinglian's heart would still ache a little. Jiyu Xingze was dead. His heart was heavy. Jiyu Jinglian suddenly narrowed his eyes. Who did it? Old master, who did it? Jiyu Jinglian gripped the armrest tightly, his gaze vicious. Who did it? Uncle Fu immediately said, I just understood the situation. It's said that the culprit has already been detained. It's a woman. The other accomplice was already dead when he went to the crime scene because of a fatal wound. A woman. Jiyu Jinglian frowned. A woman. A woman. Mu Yaja also expressed his doubts. Uncle Fu immediately said, it's said that before young Master Xingze went abroad, he wanted to see Miss Yun Shusha one last time. He was probably attacked on the way to the appointment. Did he offend any enemies? Jiyu Jinglian's expression turned even colder. I remember that he didn't offend anyone. How could he be attacked for no reason? All these need to be carefully investigated by the police before they can come to a conclusion. I've already sent people to put pressure on the relevant departments. I believe that they will be able to come to a conclusion soon. Mu Yaja frowned and suddenly asked, did you find out the woman's name? When Uncle Fu heard this, he and Jiyu Jinglian turned to look at him. After struggling for a while, he said slowly, I only know that it was a young woman with a slightly damaged face. Her surname is Yun and her name is N.A. That's all I know. Mu Yaja was stunned, and the muscles on his face tightened. Yun N.A. It was actually this woman. He narrowed his eyes and guessed what was going on. Bang! A loud sound was heard. The door of the resuscitation room opened wide. Hua Jin was startled by the sudden movement. He stood up immediately, only to see Mu Yaja walk out with a stern expression. He strode in front of him and instructed, stay here and guard her well. What happened to you? You look like you're in a hurry. Where are you going? Hua Jin was a little confused. Mu Yaja said, I have something very important to deal with. What? Before he could finish his question, Mu Yaja didn't have time to say much to him. He only instructed him to guard the resuscitation room and take care of Yun Shusha first. Then, he turned and left in a hurry. A number of police cars were parked at the entrance of the hospital. After escorting the injured and taking their statements, the police officers were about to return home. Mu Yaja followed them closely in his car until the police car entered the police station. He parked his car and rushed into the office hall. At a glance, he saw Yun N.A., whose hands were handcuffed. Chapter 2873. Mu Yaja did not recognize her at first glance, but he inadvertently discovered the hideous and terrifying scars on her face. He vaguely remembered hearing Yo-Yo and Shusha mention that Yun N.A.'s face was cruelly disfigured by Lu Jingtian because she had offended her. She used an eyebrow shaver. Her face was cut until it was dripping with blood. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows and walked closer to her. Yun N.A. was trembling all over. She lowered her head and mumbled incoherently as if she was possessed. He did not know what she was mumbling about. Mu Yaja's handsome brows sank slightly. He did not know what exactly had happened. By the time he arrived at the hospital, Yun Shusha and Jiyu Xingze had already lost their lives on the way to the hospital. One was blinded, while the other had lost his life on the way to the hospital. What exactly had happened? He did not know. However, he could vaguely guess that it had something to do with Yun N.A. Mu Yaja's face was dark and furious. He did not know that Yun N.A. was still alive, nor did he know that Yun Yeqing's accident had something to do with her. He also did not know that Lu Jingtian's burns were caused by Yun N.A. She had returned from hell like a malicious spirit, seeking revenge. After the 3 police officers in charge of this case registered the case, they walked over with the records. When they saw Mu Yaja standing at the side, they were stunned for a moment. Clearly, they did not know who he was. What are you doing? The officer in charge was the first to ask. Mu Yaja glanced at him and then said coldly, I'm the victim's family member. The victim's family member? The officer glanced at him and then at Yun N.A. He suddenly reacted. You're Yun Shusha's family member? Yes. Who are you to her? What's your identity? Husband. Zhong. The police officer was stunned. Naturally, they were no stranger to Yoon Shusha. The movie that she starred in broke box office records, and the TV series that she starred in had a rising viewership rating. The public now knew that her husband was the former chief of the Mu Group and the founder of the Shengyu Financial Group, Mu Yaja, after the catfight between her and Ji Yang had caused a huge uproar in the city. Therefore, when they heard that he was Yoon Shusha's husband, they immediately knew the man's prominent identity, and their attitude immediately became respectful. So, it's President Mu. The three police officers looked at each other and smiled awkwardly. Mu Yaja glanced at Yoon Na once more, and he noticed her eyes were staring fixedly at a certain spot as if she was in a world that she'd sealed off. Her body was swaying back and forth, and her expression was dull while she ceaselessly muttered something. What is she talking about? Hearing his question, one of the police officers immediately smiled and said, "Please wait a moment, I'll go over and listen." Another police captain immediately stopped him. "Don't go, be careful not to get caught by her." He didn't know if this woman was really crazy or just pretending to be crazy. On the way back to the police station, she was so paranoid, as if she was possessed. Could it be that she's mentally ill? If she's mentally ill, we'll have to test her. Mu Yaja immediately glanced at him coldly, and the man immediately stopped talking. "President Mu, do you have any instructions for us?" Mu Yaja sized up Yoon Na with a gloomy look, and then ordered, "Go through the bail procedure for me." This, bail. Chapter 2874. The three of them were well aware of the situation. If Mu Yaja wanted to bail someone out, he didn't need to ask for their opinion. However, it was indeed too brazen of him to go through the bail procedure without even interrogating the criminal. "I'll give you 20 minutes to go through the procedure." Mu Yaja glanced at his watch expressionlessly, then looked up and said coldly, "My time is precious." The three of them couldn't help but be deeply shocked by his gaze. They shuddered and looked at each other. At the hospital, the emergency room was crowded with people. News of Ji Yuxing's accident spread like wildfire among the media, probably due to the hospital's insiders leaking the news. Many media outlets, upon learning that Ji Yuxing had met with an accident and his life was in doubt, went to the hospital to wait for him after finding out which hospital he was sent to. Huan Yu also received the news from the Ji family and sent Ji Lin and Qin Ju to rush over. Qin Ju was the first to arrive at the hospital and hurriedly entered the morgue. In the huge morgue, there was only one bed. This was a room that the hospital had specially emptied to store Ji Yuxing's body. Soon, someone rushed over to take care of Ji Yuxing's body. When Qin Ju arrived, Ji Yuxing's clothes had already been removed and the bloodstains on his body had just been wiped clean. However, the wound was still a ghastly sight. Just as he walked to the door, he saw Ji Yuxing lying quietly on the bed. He was stunned as if he had been struck by lightning. His mind went blank for a few seconds. Qin Ju immediately reacted and rushed to the bed in a panic. However, all he saw was Ji Yuxing's deathly pale face. "Xingze." He called out Xingze's name sorrowfully. However, the most frustrating thing was that the man on the bed didn't respond to him anymore. "Xingze." Qin Ju's heart sank to the bottom. On the way here, he was burning with anxiety. He only hoped that the news was false. Perhaps in the process of passing on the message had been misinterpreted. How could a person who was alive just a second ago suddenly die for no reason? Qin Ju was clearly in disbelief. But when she rushed to the hospital and saw Ji Yuxing, she was shocked to find that all this was not fake. "Xingze really, he left." Qin Ju rarely shed tears. His personality had always been more cheerful. Even if something pessimistic happened to him, he wouldn't feel sad. However, after encountering this matter, he suddenly became weak. His eyes immediately turned red, and tears suddenly fell onto the pure white blanket. He wept bitterly. "Xingze, didn't you say you were flying to America? What is this?" He suddenly stretched out his hand and touched the ghastly wounds. Tears streamed down his face. "Where did these wounds come from? Earlier, you said that you would contact me as soon as you arrived in the US. I thought you were already sitting in the first-class cabin to the US. He immediately hugged Ji Yuxing's shoulders. His heart was filled with pain, but he did not know how to vent it. Quickly get up and tell me that this is a joke. You're joking with me. Okay, you win. I was fooled by you. Xingzi, don't close your eyes anymore. Open them and look at me. Chapter 2875. Jiyu Xingzi had been in the entertainment industry for many years. Qin Ju and he were very close. Their relationship was so close that most people would find it unreasonable. Many media outlets even speculated that the two of them were gay. They said that Qin Ju and Jiyu Xingzi did not cheat on each other and that their sexual orientation was not normal. However, in fact, it would not be appropriate to use the phrase close as brothers to describe the relationship between the two of them. Qin Ju saw Jiyu Xingzi as family, while Jiyu Xingzi saw him as a lighthouse. If it were not for Qin Ju's support in his 11 years in the entertainment industry, it would have been difficult for him to reach such a glorious position. However, he was more grateful to Qin Ju because this man understood him and understood him. He was also the only person who could walk into his heart. Qin Ju obviously could not accept this reality. He held Jiyu Xingzi's face and pressed his forehead against it. However, he could only feel the coldness from deep within his skin. There was no warmth. He was no longer around. Leaving behind such an empty shell. No matter how he called out to him, he would never wake up again. Qin Ju gripped the bedsheets tightly in pain. He obviously could not accept such bad news. Jiyu Jinglian stood at the side and watched this scene. His face also softened a little. The separation of life and death was enough to deeply affect anyone with a heart of stone. Ji Lin also arrived quickly. Many of Huan Yu's executives followed closely behind. Ji Lin walked to the door and instructed them to wait at the door before he walked in. When he walked to the bedside and saw the scene, his entire face twitched. What's going on? Qin Ju looked at him with reddened eyes. His lips could not help but tremble. Ji Lin saw him and frowned. However, he could not bear to reprimand him. He only said, "Pull yourself together. We still need you to follow up on the follow-up matters. He is my most important friend. Over 10 years of friendship is more important than family." Qin Ju choked. How can I not be sad that he's gone? How can I not be sad? You told me to pull myself together, but how can I pull myself together? Sigh. Ji Lin sighed helplessly. Qin Ju, there are media outside the door. I've already sent people to seal off the hospital, but I'm afraid it'll be difficult to stop those media. Last time, paparazzi sneaked into Lu Jingtian's morgue to take photos of her body and publish them online. I don't want such a thing to happen to Xingzi. Qin Ju clenched his fists tightly. The news of Xingzi's death should be announced to the public. This matter has already spread like wildfire among so many people in the hospital. We won't be able to keep it a secret for long. D***MN. Qin Ju cursed angrily. Which bastard spread the news? Xingzi is very popular and has a very high national profile. He can cause a commotion on the streets. There are definitely many people who would recognize him, especially nurses, especially those nurses. On my way here, I saw many nurses crowding around the door, looking around with red eyes. I'm afraid they want to come in to pay their respect. Qin Ju immediately declared, no outsiders are allowed to enter this place. So, I'll need you to settle the rest of the matters. At least don't let's okay, I understand. Qin Ju pulled himself together and straightened his body. However, when he looked at Jiyu Xingzi again, the corners of his eyebrows twitched again. He could not bear to see it, but he could not bear to look. He could not bear to. He really could not. Chapter 2876. He wanted to take a few more glances, take a few more good glances, but the more he looked, the sadder he felt. He really couldn't accept such a cruel fact. Was Xingzi really dead? Soon, like those who had died, he would turn into a small pile of ashes in the funeral parlor and be buried in a dark grave, never to see the light of day. Qin Ju suddenly felt very sad, and he couldn't stop his tears. He wasn't a weak person, but now that he deeply understood that Jiyu Xingzi would never come back, he felt the heart-wrenching pain of losing a close friend. Qin Ju tried to restrain himself again and again before he forced himself to stand up. He gently reached out to close the superstar's eyes, which had not been tightly shut. Didn't you always say that you wanted to have a good sleep? Qin looked at him and frowned, but he forced a smile. Now, you can have a good rest. Leave the rest to me. He turned around and slowly walked away. When he reached the door, a few of Huanyu's executives looked around inside. Qin stopped them. Don't look. As he spoke, he closed the door behind him. What happened to Xingze? We received news that Xingze had an accident. What happened? Qin glanced at them with a blank gaze and said casually, Xingze is asleep. Don't wake him up. The executives looked at each other, obviously not knowing what was going on. However, most of them were smart. When they heard Qin's words, they roughly confirmed their guesses. Xingze was gone. He was in a deep sleep forever. He had been in the entertainment industry for 10 years and had always been the most dazzling star. Now, he was really like a shooting star, falling into the galaxy. Xingze is asleep. Don't wake him up. He used to complain to Qin that he couldn't sleep well at night. Qin knew that his mental state was very poor and was very worried. He knew very well that Xingze had been in the entertainment industry for more than 11 years. For many years, he was always flying around the world to rush to work, so his sleep condition was very bad. Furthermore, it was accompanied by severe neurasthenia and depression. All along, it had been accompanied by medication. He had announced his retirement from the entertainment industry because of Shusha. More importantly, his personal doctor had repeatedly advised him to go to America for treatment of his depression. Xingze also gave up. However, the announcement of his withdrawal from the entertainment industry was too sudden and caught Qin off guard. Why did he fall in love with Shusha? It was probably because Shusha was the only ray of light that could expel the darkness in his heart. However, there were some things that could not be forced. He really couldn't force it. However, he had thought of countless possibilities regarding his future. Perhaps he would be cured of his depression in the United States. Perhaps, in a foreign country, he had met a suitable girl and was in love with her. Perhaps, in 2 years, he would marry the woman he loved, have children, and live a peaceful life. However, no matter how much he thought about his future, he would never have thought that he would be met with such grievous news. How could he accept this? Qin only thought that he was asleep. Perhaps, to him, this was a form of relief in disguise. The dead could not be brought back to life. He only hoped that he could rest quietly. Chapter 2877. Even though it was late at night, many media outlets rushed over after hearing the news. They waited outside the hospital door stubbornly, waiting for the breaking news at the first opportunity. There were even worse media outlets who didn't care if they found out the truth of the matter. To protest Huanyu's decision to lock down the hospital, they burned incense at the entrance of the hospital. There were also media outlets who secretly posted the news online. Soon, there were self-media outlets on Weibo that published such news. Xingze jumped to his death due to depression. This headline was too sensational. It quickly attracted the attention of many fans. But how could the fans believe the media's one-sided story? There were no photos, no concrete evidence, and no official announcement. Naturally, the fans wouldn't buy it. They would treat it as a publicity stunt. Hence, a large number of fans quickly gathered under the Weibo account to hurl insults and accusations, accusing the unscrupulous media of making groundless accusations and inciting malicious rumors. This was a rumor. Soon, this Weibo post was trampled on by Xingze's army of fans. Within a short span of 10 minutes, it attracted hundreds of thousands of fans and tens of thousands of comments. It caused such a sensation that the Weibo server was paralyzed. The technical department dealt with it urgently, and the blogger was so frightened that he immediately shut down the comments function. Many fans had a frighteningly accurate sixth sense. They probably felt that this Weibo post was too sensational and there was no official announcement, so they panicked and felt that something must have happened to Xingze. Hence, they went to Xingze's Weibo and begged him to clarify the rumors. Xingze's last Weibo post was still an announcement about Xingze's withdrawal from the entertainment industry. The fans were eagerly anticipating. But what the fans didn't know was that this Weibo account would never be updated again. No matter how much the fans cried in the comment section, Weibo remained silent. Hua Jin had been standing guard at the entrance of the operating theater. As he was worried about Shusha, he was completely distracted. Yo-Yo and Xiao Chen were also extremely anxious. They didn't rush over immediately, so they didn't know what was going on with their mommy. However, the door to the operating theater kept opening and closing, and a group of nurses came in and out in a hurry. They didn't know what was going on. Then, a nurse in a pink uniform walked in. Hua Jin stood up with a look of shock on his face. Pink uniform? In this hospital, the only nurse who wore a pink uniform was from the gynecology department. He watched helplessly as a few gynecological nurses rushed in, and the door of the emergency room slammed shut again. Xiao Chen was on the verge of tears. What should we do? Would mommy be in any danger? It's been so long, why haven't they come out yet? I'm so scared. Yo-Yo immediately shouted at him, don't talk nonsense. Mommy will be fine. Xiao Chen's face was filled with tears. He felt extremely wronged. Qin Ju, who had just walked out, heard Xiao Chen's voice and walked over curiously. When he saw that they were there as well, he was even more confused. Why are you guys? Qin Ju. Hua Jin jumped to his feet. Qin Ju was Shusha's manager. Seeing him, his anxious heart finally calmed down temporarily. Hua Jin, Shusha is in the middle of an emergency surgery. Chapter 2878. When Qin Ju heard Hua Jin mention Jiyu Xingze, his expression darkened and he frowned. Xingze is gone. Hua Jin was stunned for a few seconds. He quickly understood what he meant by gone. How could that be? He was in disbelief. When Yo-Yo heard this, she hurried over and asked, Uncle, what did you say? Uncle Xingze is gone? Qin Ju suppressed his grief and said in a low voice, let him rest well. He's been through a lot all these years. Both of them fell silent. Yo-Yo also looked regretful. Qin Ju recalled what Hua Jin had said earlier and was suddenly jolted awake. What did you say? Shusha is in the operating theater. What's wrong with her? She was sent in with Xingze. I don't know the details. I didn't come early, but I heard that her face was covered in blood. I don't know where she was hurt. When Qin Ju heard this, his expression turned serious. Why didn't you call me to inform me? I thought you knew. Hua Jin was a little annoyed. I saw you entering the hospital just now and hurrying off in another direction with a group of people. I thought you knew about Shusha's matter, but I didn't expect Xingze. How long has Shusha been in the operating theater? About 2 hours. Then, did you inform Chairman Mu? Hua Jin immediately said, he was the one who informed me first. After that, he said that he had something urgent to attend to and left first. He asked me to stay here and take care of her. Why isn't Daddy back yet? Xiao Chen mumbled in confusion. Yo-Yo immediately said, he probably had something important to attend to and didn't have time to explain it to us. Qin Ju suddenly felt troubled. In just one night, both of them had met with mishaps. He still didn't know how to handle Jiyu Xingze's matter or how to announce this bad news to the public. If the fans knew about this, they would definitely be devastated. However, he couldn't hide it for long. Many people in the hospital had seen Jiyu Xingze's remains and knew that Jiyu Xingze was dead. Even if Huan Yu did not make any official announcement, the news would spread like wildfire. At that time, it would inevitably be a little tricky. Qin Ju had to consider this carefully. But now that something had happened to Yun Shusha, he felt even more depressed. Hua Jin was so anxious that his forehead was covered in cold sweat. Qin Ju immediately comforted him. Don't worry, since you stay here to guard her, if you lose your sense of propriety, who will take care of Shusha? How can I not be worried? It's been so long, and he still hasn't come out. Hua Jin was about to cry. Qin Ju was about to say something. However, the door to the emergency room was suddenly pushed open. The nurses pushed the door open and walked out with a tray in their hands. On the tray was a gauze stained with blood. Hua Jin was frightened when he saw this. He immediately went up to the nurses and asked, Nurse, what's going on inside? The nurse looked him up and down and asked, Are you her family member? Yes. Hua Jin nodded solemnly. The nurse asked a little angrily, "The patient is pregnant. Did you know about this?" What? Hua Jin was shocked and Qin Ju was even more stunned. Yo-Yo and Xiao Chen were even more frightened when they heard this. Chapter 2879. The nurse asked angrily, "The patient is pregnant. Did you know about this?" What? Hua Jin turned pale with fright, and Qin Ju was stunned. Yo-Yo and Xiao Chen turned pale with fright when they heard this. Xiao Chen's eyes widened. What? Mommy is pregnant. Yo-Yo was also stunned. The nurse sized them up and was puzzled by their surprised expressions. It can't be, right? The patient is already 7 weeks pregnant. You didn't know about this? Hua Jin frowned and said worriedly, "We didn't know, because she hasn't had any abnormal reactions recently, such as vomiting. We haven't seen her having any morning sickness. Not everyone will have morning sickness. Some pregnant women don't have such reactions. Moreover, it's only 7 weeks. It's still so early, so there might not be any morning sickness. However, there are obvious differences between pregnant women and ordinary people. For example, they are especially sleepy." After the nurse finished speaking, Yo-Yo immediately asked, "Nurse, how is Mommy? Is her life out of danger? You said that she's pregnant. Then, is the baby in her stomach safe?" His face was full of anxiety and worry. The nurse saw that he was cute and sensible. She immediately squatted down and patted his head gently. She smiled and said, "Your mommy's life isn't in danger. Xiao Bao in her stomach is also fine. However, her eyes are injured, so her vision might be a little impaired. It's fine as long as she's fine." What everyone didn't know was that even though Yun Shusha had fallen to the ground, she had been tightly protected in Jiyu Xingza's arms. During the worst fall, Jiyu Xingza had used his entire body to protect her and took all the damage for her. Hence, the baby in Yun Shusha's arms was fine. As long as she's fine. The most important thing was that Xiao Bao in Mommy's stomach was safe. Daddy doesn't know about this, right? If Daddy knew that Mommy was pregnant, he would probably be excited, nervous, and worried, wouldn't he? She must be worried sick. He had originally planned to immediately tell his father about this matter. However, after careful consideration, if his father were to find out, he didn't know what to do. However, as long as Mommy is not in danger, that's good. Yo-Yo's heart had just calmed down when she suddenly realized something. She frowned again and asked in confusion, "Nurse, what do you mean by Mommy's eyes are injured and her vision is impaired?" Hua Jin also said nervously, "Yes, nurse. I also want to ask, what do you mean by eye injury, and to what extent is vision impairment?" During the operation just now, a lot of glass fragments were removed from the patient's eyes. These glass fragments entered the eye and pierced the cornea, causing a great deal of damage. The human cornea is very fragile, but it has the ability to repair itself. However, if the injury is serious, it may cause permanent loss of vision. Permanent loss of vision? Hua Jin raised his eyebrows and questioned, "Can you take it as blindness?" "You can put it that way. If you want to recover your vision, you can only consider a cornea transplant." The nurse hurried away. Hua Jin and Yo-Yo looked at each other, their morale low. Xiao Chen, who was beside them, only understood half of what was going on. However, he vaguely heard the phrase permanent loss of vision and was quite shocked. Chapter 2880. Yo-Yo was dumbfounded. Blindness? How could that be? The three of them lowered their heads, each with mixed feelings. He was happy that her life was no longer in danger. At least, she was fine. More importantly, the flesh and blood in her stomach were finally safe. They were worried that Yun Shusha's cornea was seriously damaged. The glass was very hard, and the cornea was not damaged at all. Her eyes were so fragile that they couldn't even tolerate sand, let alone glass shards. Hua Jin's heart ached. Yo-Yo, on the other hand, gritted his teeth in hatred. Mommy wouldn't have done something like this for no reason. Someone must be behind this. Someone must have done something to her. Who did this to Mommy? After Yo-Yo thought about it, a person's face suddenly appeared in his mind. Yang Bingqing. Yo-Yo clenched his fists as he locked onto Yang Bingqing's face. No matter how smart he was, he would never have guessed that the culprit behind this incident was Yoon Na. He had no idea that Yoon Na was still alive and had returned to the capital. Not too long ago, Ji Yang and his mother had quite a bit of dispute. Later, when he investigated Ji Yang's background, it confirmed his conjecture that Ji Yang was Yang Bingqing. He was furious at the thought of this. Little Munchkin was certain that Yang Bingqing was the one who had harmed his mommy. Therefore, he hated her to the core. He immediately walked to the side, took out his phone, and dialed Li Hanlin's number. In the middle of the night, Li Hanlin was awakened by the phone call. When he learned of the matter, he immediately agreed to send someone to detain Yang Bingqing, who was also Ji Yang. When he returned to the operating room after the call, Qin Ju was already busy dealing with Jiyu Xingze. The door of the operating room happened to open. Yo-Yo immediately rushed forward and saw a group of nurses and doctors pushing an operating table out in a hurry. Hua Jin immediately rushed over. Yo-Yo and Xiao Chen also ran over to the operating bed. They held onto the edge of the bed worriedly and looked at the patient lying quietly on the bed. Yoon Shusha lay on the surgical wound. Her body was straight, and her face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Her eyes were covered by white gauze, but the blood that seeped through the gauze could not be covered. Hua Jin was even more worried when he saw it. Yo-Yo and Xiao Chen were especially heartbroken. The local anesthesia was used for the surgery, and the effect of the anesthesia wore off very quickly. As soon as she stepped out of the operating theater, Yoon Shusha suddenly reacted. She grabbed the bedsheets tightly and tried to open her eyes. However, the sticky marks at the corners of his eyes seemed to have glued his eyelids together. It hurt when he opened his eyes. She clenched her teeth in pain and reached out instinctively as if she wanted to grab onto something. Yo-Yo wanted to reach out, but Hua Jin was one step ahead of him and held her hand tightly. Shusha, it's okay. I'm here, it's okay, Xingze. Yoon Shusha instinctively said a name that shocked him. Hua Jin was stunned. However, he heard Yoon Shusha ask anxiously with a sobbing tone, Xingze. How is Xingze? Her voice sounded very weak and weak. Even so, she still stubbornly wanted to know if Jiyu Xingze was safe and sound. Hua Jin bit his lip. He did not know what had happened at that time, but now was not the time to find out. They had just come out of the operating theater, so the first thing they should do was to have a good rest. Shusha, don't think too much for now. You'll be in the ward soon. Have a good sleep and don't think about anything. We'll talk about it when you wake up. Chapter 2881. Yoon Shusha persisted. Where's Xingze? I want to see him, I want to see him. See him? Even the doctor couldn't bear to listen to this. Miss Yoon, your eyes can't see normally now. If you want to see anyone, you have to wait until your eyes recover. My eyes aren't important. What's important is. Seeing that she couldn't communicate with them normally, Yoon Shusha tried to get up. Hua Jin immediately held her down. Shusha, listen to me. Don't mess around. In your current condition, you can't get out of bed at all. Why didn't you tell me about Xingze's condition? Yoon Shusha turned her head to him. Her lips were trembling and extremely pale, as if they had been brushed with a layer of powder. Is he? She suddenly reached out and grabbed Hua Jin's wrist tightly. A tear quickly flowed down along with a light amount of blood. Is he okay? Please, tell me. Hua Jin couldn't bear to tell her the truth. At the side, Yo-Yo mustered his courage and said, Mommy, don't ask anymore. I just heard that Uncle Xingze has fallen into a deep sleep forever. The child had a delicate mind and wasn't good at using such a cruel word like dead. To him, deep sleep was probably an acceptable way of saying it. When Yoon Shusha heard this, her expression froze. Her body froze as if she had turned into a fossil and she didn't move at all. All of a sudden, she laughed. Apparently, she didn't think so. Impossible. He can't be dead. You're lying to me. Seeing her like this, Yo-Yo's heart ached so much that he almost suffocated. He would rather suffer such pain than see his mommy trapped in such a cruel hell. It's impossible for him. It's impossible for him to die so easily. Yoon Shusha's lips suddenly parted into a smile, but the expression on her face was very hollow, as if it would completely collapse in the next second. Everyone noticed her abnormality, probably because it was hard to accept such a sudden change. Hua Jin's heart ached as he covered the back of her hand and comforted her. Shusha, don't be sad. The most important thing right now is to think about how to take care of yourself. How can I not be sad? Without any warning, she started to cry hysterically. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. No. I want to see him. I want to see him. Even if it was the last time. Shusha got up abruptly. The operating table was still moving. She jumped off the bed without thinking and fell to the ground. The retention needle in his hand fell off, and blood splattered all over the floor. She didn't care about the pain from the fall and hurriedly got up from the ground. She stood up with difficulty and her hands fumbled around randomly. When Hua Jin saw this, he immediately rushed forward and hugged her shoulders. Shusha, calm down. Can you calm down a little bit? Don't be like this. Don't punish yourself like this. Yo-Yo and Xiao Chen also rushed over and each held one of her arms. Mommy, don't scare Yo-Yo. Don't force yourself, okay? If Uncle Xingze was still alive, he wouldn't want to see you like this. I'm guessing that Uncle Xingze must be trying to protect Mommy. Uncle Xingze must be relieved that Mommy is safe and sound. So, Mommy, don't let Uncle Xingze down. Chapter 2882. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't have died. It's all my fault. Shusha was utterly defeated and burst into tears. Yo-Yo's heart ached when he heard that. Uncle Xingze was dead. He was even more worried that Mommy would live in guilt forever. In this world, the heaviest and most unbearable thing was guilt. He was grateful for Jiyu Xingze's sacrifice, and his heart ached for Uncle Xingze's devotion to Mommy. However, his heart ached even more for Mommy, who would forever live in self-blame. Shusha pursed her lips and her tears fell uncontrollably. She choked and said, "At least let me see him one last time. At least let me see him again. It's okay if I can't see him." Hua Jin took a deep breath and said, "Okay, I'll think of a way." 20 minutes later. Hua Jin helped Shusha to the door of the morgue. Based on Qin Ju's verbal instructions, the two of them were let in as usual. Yo-Yo and Xiao Chen were left outside. Shusha couldn't see anything. Hua Jin helped her to a place and stopped in his tracks. She knew that the place beside her was probably where Jiyu Xingze was parked. Shusha sucked in a breath of cold air. Only then did she reach her hand in slowly. Her fingertips came into contact with a frightening coldness. It was so cold. It was unbelievable. Why would a person's skin become so cold after losing their body temperature after death? Touching such cold skin, Shusha found it even harder to suppress the pain in her heart. Tears were about to fall again. Xingze, thousands of words escaped from her throat, but it was filled with guilt. "I'm sorry." She collapsed to the ground weakly and knelt by the bed. She fumbled around and grabbed his curled hand. His slender fingers were extremely cold, without any warmth. She grabbed his hand, but she couldn't get anything in return. Her heart was filled with anticipation. In the next second, he quietly held her hand. Then, he sat up from the bed and smiled mischievously. He scratched her nose and told her, "I'm just teasing you, little fool." She would never be angry. However, all these seemed to be wishful thinking. She knew that he would never wake up again. But, she still had a lot to say to him. Thousands of words were stuck in his throat. He couldn't say them, and it was hard for him to swallow them. "Xingze," Shusha sobbed. "Wake up, just give me a few seconds. I just want to tell you that I will never forget you. Will you forget me? In your heart, will you retain even a second of my memory?" Of course, of course. Shusha was extremely regretful. She shouldn't have said that and let him misunderstand. However, she thought that if she said that, he would close his eyes unwillingly. Unexpectedly, he believed her and left with regrets. She couldn't bear to. She wanted to tell him, "I won't forget you." "Xingze, can you hear me? Can you hear me?" Shusha said humbly, "I'm willing to use 10 years of my life in exchange for a glance from you. Open your eyes and look at me, okay?" When Hua Jin saw this, he couldn't bear it. He thought that the name Jiyu Xingze would probably be engraved in her heart forever. He reached out to hug her, but he heard her cry even more heart-wrenchingly. "Xingze! Xingze, When he heard her cry, his heart felt like it was being stabbed. Chapter 2883. Don't be sad, okay? My heart aches when I see you like this. Shusha could not stop crying and sobbing. She did not seem to be the type of person who would cry to the heavens and the earth. She clung to the edge of the bed and gripped the bedsheets tightly, crumpling them into a ball. She gritted her teeth and tried to hold back her tears, but she could not control them at all. It was as if the world had completely collapsed. One look and one could tell how desperate she was at this moment. She kept feeling that everything in front of her was a dream. She cried enough and woke up from her dream. When she woke up, Jiyu Xingze was still alive. However, every time she closed her eyes, the scene in the parking lot would replay itself. Every time she thought about how Jiyu Xingze was in her arms and how he struggled to open his eyes and say those words with great difficulty, his weak but smiling expression seemed to say, "Shusha, please don't be sad. I don't regret it." However, she regretted it. She was sad. She would break down. She did not believe that Jiyu Xingze had died just like that. He had really died just like that. She also did not believe in the nonsense that people would go to heaven after they died. When people died, they really did not exist anymore. However, there were so many beautiful things in this world that he had never experienced. His life should not have come to an abrupt end just like that. When he flew to America, it might have been the beginning of a new life. He might have welcomed a new life with a girl who loved him and he loved her too. The two of them met, got to know each other, fell in love, and finally held hands for the rest of their lives. In her heart, Jiyu Xingze had always left a beautiful image of her. He deserved to be happy, he deserved to be happy. But now, it was just as Jiyu Xingze had said. He came to this world coldly and lived coldly. In the end, he fell asleep coldly and was alone for the rest of his life. Shusha was crying like a madwoman. She was crying in despair. Even though she didn't cry herself hoarse, she was on the verge of collapse. Hua Jin finally couldn't take it anymore. His eyes reddened as he knelt down beside her and hugged her shoulders. He hugged her tightly and said painfully, "Sister, if I can bear it for you, I'm willing to bear it for you. But don't force yourself like this, okay?" Hot tears fell on her shoulders. Hua Jin also began to cry sadly. The dead cannot be brought back to life. No one would have expected such a thing to happen. I know that Senior Xingze likes you and cherishes you in his heart. Even if he were to do it all over again, I think he would still make the same choice. However, he definitely doesn't want you to punish yourself like this. It's not your fault. Why don't you let yourself go? Let yourself go. She cried and shook her head, unable to say a single word. She cried, and so did he. She cried because she was sad that Jiyu Xingze had left. He cried because he suddenly realized that Jiyu Xingze would definitely become a thorn in her heart. This thorn would probably never be removed, and with every breath, the pain would be deep in her heart. However, he definitely couldn't allow her to continue crying like this. Not to mention her eyes, he couldn't let her tears fall. It was because he was worried about the unborn fetus in her stomach that he couldn't let her cry like this. Hua Jin hardened his heart and immediately used his hand as a knife. Shusha only felt a pain at the back of her neck. Her vision suddenly turned black and she fainted. Chapter 2884. Hua Jin's heart ached as he gently caressed her face and rested his hand on her forehead. His heart ached terribly. When she was sad, he was sad too. The more she cried, the more he wished he could die for Jiyu Xingze. She wouldn't be that sad, would she? Just as he was letting his imagination run wild, there was a loud bang behind him. Mu Yaja broke through the door. Shusha. He rushed through the door and saw the person in Hua Jin's arms. He was stunned and rushed over to take her from Hua Jin's arms. Shusha. Mu Yaja gently caressed her face. It was terrifyingly cold and there was no sign of life. He couldn't help but frown. He looked up and asked, "What's wrong with her?" "Brother-in-law, don't worry. She's just fainted temporarily." Hua Jin immediately explained. She insisted that she wanted to see Senior Xingze one last time, so I brought her here. But perhaps she couldn't accept reality, so she kept crying. I was worried that it would affect her body, so I knocked her out with a karate chop. She'll wake up after resting for a while. Upon hearing this, Mu Yaja glanced at the person lying quietly on the bed. Ji Yuxing's eyes were closed quietly. The clothes on his body had been removed, and a white bedsheet covered up to his shoulders. His appearance had been tidied up. At first glance, it looked as if he had only slept for a short while. It was extremely quiet. Usually, people who died from serious injuries would die in an extremely hideous manner because of the immense pain. However, Xing's expression was very calm. No one knew what kind of dream he was having. Mu Yaja suddenly felt complicated. He didn't know how to feel about Ji Yuxing's. In the past, he probably only felt disgust towards him. But after this incident, he couldn't bring himself to hate this love rival of his. He had always thought that Ji Yuxing's feelings for Yun Shisha were just a spur of the moment, or that he was restless because he couldn't get her. Men's desire to conquer women and their careers were the most obvious. The more he couldn't get someone, the more intense his desire to conquer them would be. Mu Yaja thought that Ji Yuxing's feelings for Yun Shisha were purely driven by his desire to conquer her, but she didn't expect this man's love to be so deep. He was actually willing to sacrifice himself. However, he couldn't care less right now. Mu Yaja carefully carried Yun Shisha in his arms and left in a hurry. Hua Jin followed closely behind. Yo-Yo and Xiao Ichen followed closely behind. When they arrived at the intensive care unit, Mu Yaja gently placed her on the bed and covered her with a blanket. Hua Jin also heaved a sigh of relief. "How is she?" Mu Yaja immediately asked. Hua Jin immediately repeated what the doctor had said. Finally, he observed Mu Yaja's expression and said slowly, "Shusha is pregnant." "Do you know?" She was pregnant. Mu Yaja suddenly turned his head and looked at him with a pair of sharp eyes. He seemed to be suspicious. "What did you say?" Hua Jin patiently repeated, "She was found to be pregnant." "The doctor said that she's about 7 weeks pregnant." Mu Yaja's entire body stiffened. He turned his head and looked at Yun Shisha. His eyes were filled with emotions and his expression was complicated. Pregnant, she was pregnant. This news made him both surprised and happy. However, he was still worried. Chapter 2885. He was worried that her emotions would be too unstable and she would not be able to make it through the first 3 months. The first 3 months were the most dangerous time for a pregnant woman. If she did not take care of the fetus well, the fetus would stop developing and might not even have a heartbeat during the first 3 months. Based on her emotions, if she continued to drip, the fetus would die prematurely. When that happened, it would be a huge blow to her. She was afraid that she would be sent straight to hell. Hua Jin seemed to have guessed what he was worried about and hurriedly comforted him. But, fortunately, the fetus is fine. If she recuperates well, her condition should be stable in a few weeks. Mu Yaja leaned on the bed and held her hand with heartache. He stabilized the back of her hand and gently pecked her fingertips. "She will get better," he said softly. It was not clear if he was comforting Hua Jin or Yun Shisha. In the ward, when Yun Shisha woke up, her eyes were covered with heavy gauze. She could hear the doctor and Mu Yaja talking in a heavy tone. Mu Yaja sat by the bed expressionlessly and listened quietly. It was so quiet that there was almost no sound. Hua Jin stood beside him and listened attentively. His face was filled with nervousness and worry as he looked at the doctor anxiously. On the other hand, Yo-Yo and Xiao Ichen looked grave. Hua Jin looked haggard as he did not have a good night's rest. Mu Yaja looked the same. The doctor buried his head in writing a report, but his face was not as cold as a doctor. He carefully sized up Yun Shisha, who was lying on the bed, and looked at Mu Yaja with trepidation. He said with some regret, "Mr. Mu Yaja, your wife's cornea was damaged by a sharp object. As a result, her eyesight is damaged and there is a high possibility that she will lose her sight." Hua Jin did not look too good after hearing that. His face was ashen, but he still had a glimmer of hope and asked tentatively, "Doctor, what do you mean?" What blindness?" The doctor raised his head. Behind the thick lenses, there was a helpless look in his eyes. His tone was calm. "It means that her vision value is only 0.03. Her eyes have almost lost all vision and cognition. She can only slightly perceive light." Hua Jin blacked out. Yu, who was standing at the side, staggered and almost lost his balance. Yoon Shusha had already woken up. When she heard this conclusion, she could not help but clench her fists. Her throat tightened. At that moment, his heart almost fell into the abyss of despair. She couldn't see, but she could clearly feel Mu Yaja holding her hand tightly, his fingertips trembling slightly. She also heard Hua Jin's heartbroken question. Then Shusha's. Shusha's eyes can't be treated. Can't be cured. Not necessarily. If cornea transplantation can be considered, the sooner the better. After all, it is difficult to find donors in the medical institutions in China. Even if a suitable donor is matched, the surgery may not be successful. So, you have to be mentally prepared. However, considering that she is pregnant, the surgery can't be rushed. After all, as a pregnant woman, there is still a lot of risk in the surgery. On the bed, Yoon Shusha's body suddenly froze. What? Pregnant? Pregnant woman. These words were so unfamiliar. What did they mean? She was full of doubts and forced herself to listen to the doctor more carefully. Chapter 2886. On the bed, Yoon Shusha's body suddenly froze. What? Pregnant? Pregnant woman. These words were so unfamiliar. What did they mean? She was full of doubts and forced herself to listen to the doctor more carefully. Earlier, the doctor had said those words intermittently, so she didn't really listen. She only vaguely heard a few words. Cornea transplant, pregnant woman. There was a huge risk in the surgery. However, this series of words was enough to shock her and make it difficult for her to digest. Was she pregnant? Yoon Shusha was so nervous that her whole body tensed up. Mu Yaja sensed the hidden meaning in the doctor's words and couldn't help but frown. What do you mean? The doctor deliberated for a moment and observed his expression. Suddenly, he said slowly, my suggestion is that you can keep the child, but it might affect the cornea transplant surgery. After all, cornea donors are hard to come by. If you miss the opportunity, you might have to wait for a long time. In this way, if the surgery is delayed, you will inevitably feel regretful. Or you can keep the eye, abort the child as soon as possible, and perform the cornea transplant surgery as soon as possible. This is a safer plan. The doctor's cold words were still in their ears. However, those cold words undoubtedly pressed on their hearts, making the entire ward feel like it was covered in a layer of frost. Mu Yaja looked up and glanced at him. His tone was a little dangerous. Abort the child? Yes. The doctor said seriously, with her physical condition, the chances of her having children in the future are still very high. If the child is gone, she can have another one. However, if the cornea donor is missed, it's not something that can be obtained just because she wants it. Mu Yaja suddenly stood up and rushed to the doctor. He grabbed him by the collar and pressed him against the wall. The doctor only felt the back of his head hit the cold wall. His brain shook. When he opened his eyes again, he met Mu Yaja's cold and deep eyes. He couldn't help but be shocked. The cold gaze made him shudder. The doctor suddenly felt his hair stand on end. He was so scared that his voice trembled violently. Mr. Mu, let's talk nicely. Let's talk nicely. Mu Yaja coldly curled his lips and asked fiercely, whose child do you want to abort? Speak. Mu Yaja's blood had clearly rushed to his head. The cold aura on his body had completely spread throughout the ward, extending to every corner. The middle-aged man, who was almost in his 40s, was almost suffocated by Mu Yaja's dangerous gaze. Chairman Mu, please don't misunderstand. I'm doing this for your wife's sake. Is this for her sake? By aborting the child, you're forcing her to her death. Mu Yaja tightened his grip on his clothes. If he wasn't trying to control himself, he might have unconsciously strangled him. The doctor wanted to cry but had no tears. But, although it's cruel, these two plans are the most reliable. I warn you. Don't even think about touching the child. The child must be saved. Right now, she couldn't bear another heavy blow. The doctor was so scared that he nodded repeatedly. Mu Yaja loosened his grip on the man, and the latter immediately scrambled out of the ward. Hua Jin vaguely heard movement from the bed. He turned his head and saw that Yoon Shusha had woken up. She sat up and gently leaned against the back of the bed. Shusha, you're awake. When Muyaja heard that, he looked back in shock but met her cold eyes. Chapter 2887. When Muyaja heard this, he turned around in shock and met her cold eyes. She couldn't see anything. She could only vaguely make out a black silhouette in the hazy light. However, this silhouette was too blurry. She didn't even know who this silhouette belonged to. Muyaja walked towards her slowly until he was right in front of her. He sat down on the side of the bed and leaned closer to her. Yun Shusha was indifferent and didn't react at all. She couldn't see him. She couldn't even see him walking towards her. Muyaja held her hand tightly. It was so sudden that she was startled and her body curled up slightly. It's me, he comforted her gently and placed his hand on the back of her hand. Shusha, do you feel better? He asked tenderly. Are you feeling unwell? When Muyaja saw that she didn't say a word and was extremely quiet, his eyebrows furrowed even more. His heart ached as he kissed her fingertips. His throat was slightly hoarse. Shusha, don't scare me. It's okay that you can't see. You still have me. But don't keep quiet. Yun Shusha opened her mouth, but her throat was hoarse from crying and she couldn't make a sound. Yo-Yo and Xiaochen came over and stood on both sides of the bed. They looked at Yun Shusha worriedly. Mommy, say something. Yo-Yo choked and said, it's okay now. Yo-Yo, Xiaochen, Daddy, and Uncle Hua Jin are all here to protect you. We won't let you get hurt again. Children were sensitive and knew that the person who had regained consciousness was probably still in a daze and was still in a state of panic. He comforted her immediately and hoped that she wouldn't be afraid again. Yun Shusha couldn't help but clench her fists. She bit her lip and lowered her head. The first words that came out of her mouth were 3 words. I'm sorry. Everyone was stunned. Hua Jin walked over and said angrily, why are you apologizing for no reason? I'm sorry. Yun Shusha only cared about apologizing and kept saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can atone for my sins in any way. I can even exchange my life for it. I'm sorry. Muyaja couldn't stand it and hugged her tightly. Shusha, did you hear what the doctor said? Our child is in your womb now. Yun Shusha's eyes gazes and couldn't help but feel suffocated. Child, it turned out that what she had heard earlier was as was she. Was she really pregnant? Maybe it's a little princess, or maybe it's a mischievous little fellow. No matter if it's a boy or a girl, I like them all. I love them all. Hearing this news, I was pleasantly surprised. As he spoke, he hugged her shoulders and gently kissed her trembling lips. That's why you have to take good care of your body, okay? I'm sorry. Don't say sorry again. Muyaja's tone was full of pleading. You didn't do anything wrong. No one blames you. Don't say sorry. I don't want to hear it. Hua Jin also said, Shusha, did you hear that? You have a Xiao Bao baby. The baby is in your womb now. Chapter 2888. Yo-Yo added, but it's still very young, so we can't tell if it's a boy or a girl. It'll be great if it's a little princess. Daddy has always wanted a little princess. Xiaochen said. Daddy said that he'll love both boys and girls. Yo-Yo immediately added. His clear eyes looked at Yun Shusha's tummy with curiosity and love. Then he said gently, I'll love Xiao Bao a lot too. Mommy, I swear that I'll be a gentle brother and take good care of little sister. Xiao Ichen teased, how do you know that it's a little sister? Oh, it's probably telepathy. Yo-Yo grinned and said, I'm guessing that the baby in Mommy's tummy is a little sister. Who asked Daddy to always want a little princess? Don't you like little sister too? Xiao Ichen blushed strangely. Then he murmured, yeah, I want a little sister. Although Yun Shusha could not see, she could still imagine the 2 children's expectant gazes when she heard that. Muyaja gently placed his hand on the back of her hand and called out to her gently, Shusha, you still have me, Yo-Yo, and Xiaochen. You also have a 7-week-old baby in your tummy. She's very lucky and strong. The doctor said that it's a miracle that she was able to survive under such terrible circumstances. Yun Shusha's heart skipped a beat. She's very lucky, she's very strong. Yun Shusha's lips suddenly trembled. Her voice trembled as she said, at that time, The car almost hit me and ran me over. She couldn't help but recall that scene. As she held her cell phone, she felt the oppressive high beams of the car behind her blinding her eyes. If Jiyu Xingze hadn't pushed her to the side at the critical moment, she would have been crushed under the wheels of the car. Even though Jiyu Xingze had pushed her to the ground, he had taken all of her weight. Jiyu Xingze had pulled her into his embrace and used his back to take all the impact. Hence, the moment they landed on the ground, she clearly felt Jiyu Xingze's breath drop as he sucked in a painful breath. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have been able to keep the baby in her tummy. If it weren't for him, she would have been rolled over and over by Yoon Ene's car dozens of times. How much did Yoon Ene hate her? Even when he was talking to her, he was gnashing his teeth in anger. He wanted nothing more than to turn into a ferocious beast, tear her into a million pieces, and chew her into his stomach. She didn't care about the consequences of her actions. She didn't care about the law. What she wanted was a life for a life. Yoon Na had always had the intention of perishing together with the enemy. Even if she died and was punished by the law, she wanted to drag them down to hell. Yoon Yecheng was a good example. He was her biological father. She actually had the heart to splash him with sulfuric acid, and concentrated sulfuric acid at that. How cruel must she be to think of such a cruel method? What if it wasn't Jiyu Xingze? Chapter 2889. If it wasn't for Jiyu Xingze, I would have been the one lying on that bed right now. Yoon Shusha clutched her chest in pain as tears rolled down her cheeks uncontrollably. Her heart ached so much that she couldn't breathe. She wasn't that fragile and didn't like to cry, but she just couldn't stop feeling sad. She really couldn't do it. She couldn't force herself to smile and live well after losing Xingze. This was too cruel. Too cruel, she choked and said. He could have escaped. He knew that they had guns and bullets didn't have eyes, but he didn't run. He didn't have to protect me. That way, he wouldn't have been stabbed so many times. Sob, sob, sob. He still had a chance to live. Why did he end up like this? Mu Yaja hugged her with heartache as his eyes reddened. His heart ached terribly. Other than hugging her tightly in his arms and trying to feel her heartache, he couldn't say anything else. Hua Jin choked and said, "Shusha, don't keep thinking about this. Since it's already happened, let's turn the page and let bygones be bygones. The dead are gone, and the living are still alive. Xingze is no longer around, so you have to cherish him even more. He must want you to be well and not torture yourself. But I can't figure it out, I can't understand." Yoon Shusha couldn't stop crying. "I can't understand, and I don't want to understand. I just want him to come back. Don't cry." Mu Yaja lowered his head and kissed her injured eyes through a layer of gauze. "Shusha, don't cry. Sleep well and don't let your imagination run wild." Huh. Don't let your imagination run wild. He knew that asking a heartbroken person not to cry and not to shed tears when they were in incomparable pain was crueler than cutting them into pieces. But she couldn't cry anymore. Every time her tears flowed out of her eyes, it was undoubtedly adding salt to the wound. He didn't want her to suffer this pain anymore. Yo-Yo rubbed her eyes and tried hard not to cry, but every time she saw her mother in pain, her heart ached even more. Everyone was flustered. After much difficulty, they finally managed to soothe her to sleep. After she fell asleep, the ward finally returned to silence. For a moment, it was quiet. Only then did the nurses enter the ward. The needle on her wrist had been removed, so she had to switch to another hand for the 4-drip. Mu Yaja kept hugging her as he lay on his side on the bed while she snuggled up in his embrace, using his arm as a pillow. Even though half his arm was numb from having to rest for a long time, he still couldn't bear to let her go. Just like that, he hugged her, guarded her, and looked at her. Yoon Shusha did not sleep well. From time to time, her breathing would become rapid. Perhaps she was having a nightmare, but no one knew what she was dreaming of, for her forehead to break out in cold sweat. Yo-Yo fetched a basin of hot water and squeezed the towel dry. Then, she carefully wrapped the towel and helped her wipe off the cold sweat. Xiao Chen stood by the side and quietly covered her with the blanket. The three of them had a clear division of labor. Hua Jin was tired after watching over her for the whole night and the whole morning. Hence, he lay on the bed to rest. He planned to wait until night time when Muyaja was tired so he could take care of Shusha for him. Chapter 2890. In the afternoon, Yun Shusha finally fell asleep. Hua Jin also woke up. The four of them didn't dare to leave for too long. They were hungry, so they ordered takeout. Hua Jin didn't know what to order. After consulting their opinions, he finally decided to order fast food. Firstly, it was fast. Secondly, it was hygienic with meat and vegetables. They were all starving. Even though Muyaja didn't say anything, he didn't eat breakfast or lunch. His stomach was growling. Hua Jin was a little nervous. He didn't know if Muyaja, with his noble status, would take a liking to the food he ordered. After all, he had a net worth of hundreds of billions. He rarely ordered fast food. Unexpectedly, when the food was delivered, he personally carried the lunchbox to the table like an ordinary person. He distributed the chopsticks and spoons one by one, held the lunchbox, and ate elegantly. It was Hua Jin's first time seeing a man eat so elegantly. He was like a noble. Even though he was holding an ordinary lunchbox, it gave him the feeling of a gentleman eating in a noble restaurant. Wasn't this man too perfect? Hua Jin muttered in his heart. He didn't even know how to hold the chopsticks next to him. Muyaja lowered his head and ate with heavy thoughts. Yun Na had been released on bail. He didn't pay much bail, and the police station didn't dare to take too much. The police station didn't have time to record this case, so it was perfect to cover it up perfectly. Yun Na was a missing person in the household registration center. As long as her records were erased, she would be a missing person without any news. The reason he bailed Yun Na out wasn't because he wanted to do anything, nor was he planning to let her go. Instead, he planned to handle this matter personally. It wasn't that he didn't believe in the law. He believed that with the seriousness of the law, Yun Na's case should at least be a heavy death sentence. Moreover, what kind of sensational effect would the news of Jiyu Xingza's death cause? This criminal case would definitely not be reduced to a simple one. Even though Huanyu was still trying hard to keep this matter under wraps, they wouldn't easily announce the news of Jiyu Xingza's death before the PR draft was released. Even though Jiyu Xingza's fans were tormented by their guesses, it was impossible for them to announce his death so soon. However, he did not believe that the law could give him a satisfactory trial. Sometimes, when dealing with evil, using violence to curb violence was the only way to be fair. At night, Yun Shusha still hadn't woken up. There were nutrients and tranquilizers in the intravenous drip. Since she hadn't woken up, Muyaja decided to go to the company. He had rushed over in a hurry and put down the board meeting that was halfway through. At this moment, matters, big and small, had probably piled up into a mountain. He had to assign tasks as soon as possible. Hence, he urgently summoned Lu Jinyu and Jiang Shun to the office. For the next few days, he had to stay in the ward until her emotions were stable enough. The company's affairs would be put aside for the time being. Hua Jin would take care of Yun Shusha on his behalf. However, not long after Muyaja left, Hua Jin finished washing the dishes and returned to the bedside. Suddenly, he heard hurried footsteps coming from the corridor. The heavy footsteps were fast and powerful. He thought that Muyaja had left something in the ward. He looked up at the door. The next second, the door was pushed open forcefully. A Gong Jie, who was dressed in black, pushed the door open and walked in nervously. Chapter 2891. Gong Jie, who was dressed in black, pushed the door open and walked in nervously. Why was it him? Hua Jin was extremely surprised to see him. There was no other reason. From what he remembered, Gong Jie had always liked white things. He had a head of silvery hair, a white suit and pants, and a white trench coat. This was something that left a deep impression on him. Most people who liked white had misophobia and were extremely picky about cleanliness. Gong Jie was a misophobe to the point of being perverted. However, today, he was dressed in black. His trench coat was not like before, where it was simply draped over his shoulders. Instead, it covered his entire body, as if he was trying to hide something. Gong Jie pushed the door open and walked in. He immediately saw Yun Shusha lying quietly on the bed. He looked nervous for a while and immediately rushed to the bed. "Sis." Hua Jin immediately said, She finally fell asleep. Don't wake her up. Gong Jie looked at him and immediately stopped talking. All of a sudden, Hua Jin noticed a subtle movement. From the moment Gong Jie entered the room until now, he had been holding his left shoulder with his right hand. His originally handsome and devilishly handsome face was now extremely pale, as if he was enduring something. God knew that when Yun Shusha's phone was crushed by the car wheels and could no longer be reached, he did not care that he was still injured and was still recuperating. He immediately arranged for a flight and rushed over. Even though he was very resourceful, he was able to find the hospital where she was hospitalized without much effort. After finding out the ward, he rushed over. The hospital's elevator was always very congested. He could not wait for the elevator and ran all the way up the stairs. His forehead was still covered in sweat. When he ran, his movements affected the position of his wound. The wound probably split open a little and some blood seeped out, sticking to his clothes. This was also the reason why he deliberately changed into black clothes. If he wore white clothes, once the wound split open, it would be immediately obvious. Gong Jie sat on the side of the bed and leaned over to look at her. As soon as he entered the ward, he saw that Yun Shusha's eyes were covered with 2 layers of gauze and there was a trace of blood seeping through. He couldn't help but be shocked. Gong Jie turned his head abruptly and questioned Hua Jin, "What happened to her eyes? Are you hurt?" "Shh." Hua Jin immediately signaled him, "Don't be too loud." If it were any other time, if Hua Jin dared to order him like this, Gong Jie would definitely explode. He would even flip the bedside table. Alas, he had always been cautious when it came to Yun Shusha's matters, so he immediately lowered his voice obediently. "Is her eye injured?" Hua Jin's lips twitched. He felt that no matter what it was, as long as it involved Yun Shusha, Gong Jie would immediately turn from a mighty lion to an obedient and cute cat. This contrast was a little too great. Hua Jin immediately explained, "Her eyes are hurt, but other than that, she's mostly fine." "Eyes? Hurt? What exactly happened?" Gong Jie was halfway through his words when Yo-Yo walked into the ward from the balcony. Xiao Chen also walked in. The 2 little lads washed their towels and hung them up to dry. When they saw Gong Jie, they were stunned. "Uncle?" Chapter 2892. Let's not bother about this for now. Gong Jie was not in the mood to explain this. He only wanted to know what was going on with the 2 layers of gauze on Yun Shusha's eyes. Yo-Yo and Hua Jin looked at each other. From Hua Jin's words, Gong Jie roughly understood what had happened last night. Yo-Yo explained again, Uncle Xingze was stabbed 4 times in the abdomen and waist to protect Mommy. 2 of the wounds were fatal, and he went into shock due to excessive blood loss. In the end, when he arrived at the hospital, he had already lost all signs of life. As for Mommy, because of an accident, glass splashed into her eyes and cut her cornea. She might not be able to regain her normal vision for a while. Xiao Chen's heart ached as he said, "Mommy cried so hard because of Uncle Xingze. No matter how much we coaxed her, it was useless. She's probably sad." The doctor repeatedly reminded her not to cry or shed tears, but no one could persuade Mommy. It wasn't easy for Daddy to coax Mommy to sleep, but she hasn't woken up yet. When Gong Jie heard this, his heart ached so much that it was about to bleed. He walked to the bedside and leaned over slightly. Looking at Yun Shusha's sleeping face, his slender fingers gently stroked the gauze. The bleeding spot made his heart clench. Perhaps it was because they were twins. He could completely empathize with the pain that she could endure. He could feel her despair, her helplessness, her loneliness, and her pain that she had no one to vent to. All of this was difficult for ordinary people to understand. After all, the needle wasn't pricked on their own body, so they wouldn't know how painful it was. However, he had a magical sense. He could sense all of her emotions. After all, before they were born, they were already protecting each other. "How long is she going to sleep for?" His voice was soft, as he couldn't bear to disturb her. "I hope that Mommy can sleep a little longer. Otherwise, if she wakes up and keeps crying, it won't be good for her body. Her eyes are already like this, she can't cry anymore. Besides, if you keep crying, it won't be good for the baby in your tummy," little Chen added solemnly. Gong Jie was stunned. When she heard Xiao Chen's last sentence, she couldn't help but fall into a daze. What? What baby? For a moment, he did not understand what was going on. Yo-Yo said from behind, "Uncle, Mommy is pregnant. There's a 7-week-old Xiao Bao baby in her stomach. She's pregnant." A look of surprise appeared on Gong Jie's face when he heard this. "Yes. The doctor said that Mommy was 7 weeks pregnant. I also felt that it was strange. During that time, Mommy's reaction was indeed a little abnormal. It was said that when she was filming on set, she had vomited a few times. I thought she had such a reaction because she was tired from filming." Yo-Yo was a little annoyed. He should have reacted in time, but he was careless. He only hoped that Mommy would give him and Xiao Chen a little sister, so he didn't connect her abnormal reaction to the pregnancy. Gong Jie's gaze fell on her face. He doted on her. He even doted on the baby in her stomach, which was not even 2 months old. Fortunately, the heavens doted on her and the baby didn't die prematurely. It was saved. Thinking of this, Gong Jie's heart was more or less comforted. It's good that the baby is saved. Chapter 2893. After Jiyu Xingza's death was pushed back 48 hours, many fans could no longer hold it in. They found out the address from somewhere and ran to the entrance of the hospital to wait. At this moment, it was already raining heavily. The downpour came suddenly and fiercely. Even so, it was difficult to extinguish the anxious hearts of the fans. Many fans rushed to the scene and found that the entrance of the hospital was already guarded by many media reporters. The hospital was brightly lit and was in a state of alert. Many people also realized that the hospital's security had been strengthened. The hospital had even deployed a lot of police officers from the Ministry of Public Security to maintain order at the scene. The fans were not stupid. The abnormal situation at the scene reminded them that the thing they were most uneasy about might not be a groundless accusation. Could it be true? Did something really happen to Master Xingza? Impossible. How could it be true? I don't believe it, I don't believe it. Many fans waited for the official news for a long time. They were in a state of panic the entire night. Obviously, they were extremely afraid. At the same time, at Huanyu's headquarters, the meeting room was brightly lit. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. Many of the higher-ups had expressions on their faces. Ji Lin sat in the chairman's seat. Beside him, Qin Ju looked exhausted, but he still looked extremely serious. I believe everyone knows about Xingza's matter. Right now, everyone is facing the biggest public relations crisis. First of all, this matter hasn't been investigated clearly. Before the truth is found out, we must not act rashly, and we must not announce to the media what happened. As for the media, Qin Ju will be in charge of handling it. This time, no matter the price, we must suppress the storm as soon as possible. Many media reporters suspected that Xingza had offended someone from the underworld, so he was assassinated. Assassinated? Qin Ju glared. Nonsense. One of the higher-ups found it funny and said, offended the underworld? These media outlets didn't even ask around about the Jiyu family's background. How did they deduce such a ridiculous statement? Qin Ju said unhappily, there's no need to say anything else. Some ridiculous statements are not worth responding to at all. Many media outlets are clowns who make fun of the public. In order to attract the public's attention, they don't even care about the most basic professional ethic. Yes, I understand. After an entire night of intense meetings, the next day, 3 days after Jiyu Xingza's death, Huanyu finally released official news. This time, however, it wasn't released through Weibo. In order to show the solemnity, Huanyu directly published an obituary in the largest media and announced the news on their official website. The obituary was brief. The gist of it was that Jiyu Xingza had met with an accident on his way to meet his friends. He had passed away in the wee hours of the previous night. The obituary was carefully worded and mournful. At the same time, it announced that there would be a grand memorial service in 2 days at Hongyang Funeral Parlor in Beijing. Many artistes had already secretly expressed that they wanted to participate in the obituary. Chapter 2894. At first, the fans thought that it was a prank by the company, an April Fool's Day prank. Many fans were deceiving themselves, unwilling to believe that the obituary was real. They even went to Huanyu's official website to leave comments, scolding the website for being black-hearted for using such malicious words to create hype. Jiyu Xingze said he was going to study for a master's degree in America. I think it must be a malicious attempt by the company to create hype. Although Jiyu Xingze set up his own studio, he was still affiliated with Huanyu. Now that he has left Huanyu, such a big money tree has collapsed. The company won't let it go so easily. That's why they created such a damaging hype. They want to take advantage of Jiyu Xingze's declining reputation to create more hype. This is too much. Just because Jiyu Xingze insisted on leaving the entertainment industry, they can't disregard their years of friendship and do this, right? Xingze is so pitiful. To be accidentally killed for no reason at all, how unlucky. However, the fans' self-deception was quickly slapped in the face. When many media outlets reposted the obituary on their official Weibo accounts, many A-list celebrities immediately stepped forward to repost it and post their condolences. Especially the directors and big-name producers who had worked with Jiyu Xingze before. All the fans were scared out of their wits by this huge memorial. Just when they were still holding on to a faint glimmer of hope, Jiyu Xingze's former manager stepped forward and posted a memorial obituary on Weibo. Goodbye, Xingze. Once upon a time, when I first met you, I was stunned. I only thought of you as a handsome young man who had walked out of a painting. Melancholy, yet beautiful. You had a cold temperament that was hard to find in ordinary people, but your eyes revealed arrogance and loneliness. The first thing I wanted to do was to sign you. I think you're a rare talent. Some people were born to be the center of attention, like you. In fact, time gave me the best answer. In the 10 years since your debut, as long as your name was mentioned, it was the best evidence. You were the idol of your generation, a fashion superstar, a genius in acting, and the youngest best actor of your generation. You were an irreplaceable legend. I was proud of you. I was proud of you. However, at this moment, I suddenly regret my decision. Perhaps if we hadn't met back then and you hadn't stepped into the entertainment industry, you wouldn't have fallen so quickly like a shooting star. Xingze, do you know? Once upon a time, what was my expectation of you? I hope that you can win the Most Outstanding Celebrity Award, the World's Best Male Artist Award, the Best Actor Award at every prestigious film festival, and the world's attention. I wish you were the king. I hope you become a legend that can never be surpassed. But, do you know what hope I have right now? Right now, I just want you to come back. It didn't matter that he was no longer the heavenly King Xingze of the past. It didn't matter if he didn't have the glory and halo. It's good that you're back. It would be even better if you could start your life all over again. Even if these are difficult to achieve, even if you live well, breathe the fresh air, look at the beautiful blue sky, and sleep well where no one will ever disturb you. How long has it been since you had a good rest? 1 month. 10 months. It was still 10 years. Chapter 2895. Many people think that being a superstar idol is extremely lucky. With a high income that ordinary people can only dream of, they enjoy an elegant life that ordinary people don't even dare to dream of. But your life has never been elegant. You're lonely. You can't sleep well, even if it's just a normal night's sleep. You can't eat a proper meal. My heart aches for you. My heart aches to the extreme. I still remember that night when the bad news came. I rushed to the hospital, but I could only see your sleeping face. I was heartbroken. How many decades do we have in life? The 10 years between us is not something that can be measured by mere numbers. This period of time is the most unforgettable period of my life. Yes, you left. You left this world without hesitation and fell into a quiet sleep. I cried and called your name, but you didn't give me an impatient look like before. The dead can't come back to life. The dead are gone, and the living are still alive. I didn't sleep well the whole night. But now, I'm relieved to think that you can finally sleep well. No one will disturb you again. But Xingze, why is fate so unfair to such a gentle person like you? Goodbye, Xingze. I only hope that if there's a next life, we'll be lucky enough to meet again. This emotional long Weibo post was written from the bottom of his heart. Many fans cried in despair when they saw it. They cried not only because they were reluctant and touched, but also because they knew that Jiyu Xingza's departure had become a reality. Xingza was gone. Xingza was really gone. Many fans thought that after Jiyu Xingza left America, his manager colluded with the company to tarnish his reputation. However, these conspiracy theories were quickly debunked under the evidence of other fans. My sister is a nurse at that hospital. She's also a veteran fan. She's a nurse in the emergency room. She said that 2 days ago, Xingza and Yun Shusha were sent to the hospital at the same time. Yun Shusha's eyes were injured, and Xingza was stabbed several times. 2 of the stabs were unknown, and 3 of the stabs hit his vitals. He stopped breathing on the way here. Apparently, the friend that Xingza met was Yun Shusha. He didn't expect to be attacked by criminals on the way. In order to protect Yun Shusha, Xingza was stabbed when he resisted. I heard about it too. I was still in the hospital at that time, and many paparazzi had already caught wind of the news and were waiting outside the hospital. At that time, all the security guards of the hospital were present, and many police officers were transferred from other police stations to prevent the paparazzi from sneaking into the hospital. Many rumors spread among the fans. Some of Jiyu Xingza's fans came from powerful backgrounds. Although they did not have access to everything, it was not difficult for them to find out which hospital Jiyu Xingza was in. Many fans believed it to be true. When Huanyu published the obituary, all the celebrities reposted it. However, Yun Shusha, who had a lot of interaction with Jiyu Xingza, was the only one whose Weibo was deserted. Many fans scolded her for not caring. They said that she deserved Jiyu Xingza's protection and flattery. When such a big thing happened, she did not express her thoughts at all. There were also many fans who stood on Yun Shusha's side. They argued that Yun Shusha was probably too sad to post anything on Weibo. A person's attitude could not be easily measured by a word or two on Weibo. Chapter 2896. However, there were also nurses from the hospital who came forward to expose what Yun Shusha can't post on Weibo because she's still recuperating in the hospital. To think that Xingza protected her so much and even lost his life for her. At this moment, she was found to be pregnant. Great, now that she's pregnant, she can rely on her son's status again. The family is overjoyed, but poor Xingza is lying alone in the cold morgue, and she doesn't even look at him. Once this Weibo post was posted, it quickly became the headline. In fact, not only had Yun Shusha woken up long ago, she had also visited Xingza twice. However, both times, she had secretly gone when no one was around. She knew that the memorial service would be held in 2 days. At that time, Xingza would be cremated and buried. She felt as if her heart was being torn apart when she thought about how a person who was once alive was about to turn into a thin wisp of bone ash. She only wanted to spend the little time she had left with him. When Yo-Yo saw this Weibo post, he was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. However, he did not dare to tell Yun Shusha. At 6 in the evening, Yun Shusha sat on the bed and ate fruits with a numb expression. Mu Yaja was reviewing the company's financial report while eating bread. Gong Jie had also been guarding the ward for the past few days. When Yun Shusha woke up and saw him, she was a little surprised and shocked. She was so surprised that she did not mention Yun Yecheng's matter. When she was covering her forehead, she was not in the mood to care about his health. Her heart was in a mess. When she first woke up, she refused to eat anything. Gong Jie persuaded and begged her in every way possible before she finally drank some millet porridge. When Mu Yaja returned, the 2 men were in the ward. One was innocently begging her to drink Chinese medicine, while the other was trying his best to coax her. Only then did she obediently eat her food. It was not enough to rely on nutrient solutions alone. Only by eating on time could she ensure that her body was supplied with nutrients. After all, you are not alone now. Gong Jie reached out and patted her head, his eyes full of affection. For the sake of the little guy in your belly, you have to grit your teeth and eat it. Yun Shusha listened to him and obediently cooperated. After dinner, Yun Shusha gently wiped her lips with a wet towel and said calmly, "I want to go to Jiyu Xingza's memorial service." Upon hearing this, the man turned to look at her in surprise. What? Mu Yaja also looked up at her. "Mommy, you can't walk around now. You can't go anywhere. Yo-Yo said immediately. Yoon Shusha curled her lips, as if she had known that they would not allow it. She said helplessly, I'm just going to a memorial service. Are you not allowing it? Without waiting for Gong Jie to speak, Mu Yaja immediately said, there will be many fans at the memorial service. Not only fans, but there will also be major media outlets and A-list celebrities. The memorial service venue is very big and can accommodate thousands of people. This is only the inner venue. When the time comes, the outer venue will definitely be surrounded by fans. You are now at the cusp of the storm. You shouldn't go. I'm only going to see him for the last time. Yoon Shusha emphasized again and again, can't I do that? No. Mu Yaja was resolute and resolute. Chapter 2897. Gong Jie said solemnly, Sister, you shouldn't go. There will be a sea of people at such an event. Even if you don't get squeezed, bumped, or hurt, I'm afraid that you won't be able to control yourself. If you start crying, who will be able to stop you? Also, you can't see. How are you going to see him for the last time? Yoon Shusha's eyes reddened when she heard this. Shou Jie, can you go with me? Even if I can't see him for the last time, I'll send him on his last journey. Gong Jie couldn't bear to reject her plea. He looked at Mu Yaja and then at her. He sighed and said, even if I agree, brother-in-law might not agree to let you go. Moreover, your eyes aren't big enough to see anything. If you get hurt, even if brother-in-law doesn't feel bad, I will. Gong Jie, who was usually as unruly as a lion, was acting like a spoiled child to him. Mu Yaja glanced at him from the corner of his eyes before nodding in satisfaction. This was probably one of the rare things that he and his brother-in-law could agree on at the same time. Yoon Shusha felt even more desolate when she heard this. Her lips trembled and she said in a trembling voice, Shou Jie, if I don't see him for the last time, I won't be able to forgive myself. I only hope that I can be by his side in his last moments. Even if I don't say anything, I can just stand there silently from afar. Gong Jie looked at Mu Yaja awkwardly. Mu Yaja didn't insist. Seeing how persistent she was, he took a deep breath and smiled. If you insist on going, then I have a condition. Let me accompany you, okay? Okay. As long as she could go, she would accept any condition. Mu Yaja wanted to accompany her because he was worried that something might go wrong on the way. Even if something happened, he would feel at ease if he was by her side. At least, she wouldn't be so helpless if she encountered danger again. Since Yoon Shusha was hospitalized, very few people came to visit her. It was not because she was not popular, but because very few people knew that she was hospitalized. She didn't tell anyone that she had an accident and was in the hospital. Other than Gong Jie, Hua Jin, Qin Ju, several senior executives of the company, and director Ji Lin, almost no one knew about it. No one came to visit, so it was rather peaceful. Instead, she would be able to sleep better. Mu Yaja agreed to accompany her to Jiyu Xingza's memorial service, which made her feel extremely gratified. Before the memorial service was held, Qin Ju led some people to pack up Jiyu Xingza's belongings. When Qin Ju was packing up his belongings, he accidentally found his patient's medical report. Medical records. He opened it and read it. Despite the doctor's own scribbling, he could still make out that his condition was worse than he had imagined. Severe anxiety and insomnia. Along with the medical records, there was also a diary. Jiyu Xingza never had the habit of keeping a diary, but after reading the first entry, Qin Ju guessed that the doctor had probably asked him to write this diary. From the diary, he found out that he hadn't slept well for more than half a month. Qin Ju suddenly realized that Jiyu Xingza hadn't slept well for a long time since his last visit. His complexion was extremely pale, and it took a lot of effort to put on makeup. Chapter 2898. However, the media that went to visit him found out that he was using a body double, so they used him as a big shot to hype up his news. As a heavenly idol, Jiyu Xingza's every move would be the center of attention. What the media wanted was a hot topic and exposure. As the center of attention, Jiyu Xingza's psychological burden became heavier. The doctor told me to write a diary, to record the beautiful details of my life, even if it was a small detail. However, I realized that I don't even have a life of my own. My every move is under the eyes of others. How can there be beautiful details? My dream is to be able to fall asleep when I close my eyes and wake up naturally. If I leave, please don't lock me in that cold tomb. If one day, I really turn into a pile of ashes, please let me embrace freedom. Chin-ju closed the diary and did not force himself to finish reading it. The more he read, the more suffocated he felt. He continued to pack until he found a video camera and a stack of documents in the drawer. When he opened the documents, he was surprised to find that Ji Yuxingze had already drafted his will and distributed his assets. All the rules and regulations were clearly laid out, and they had all been notarized. Ji Yuxingze had a lot of assets in Beijing. Other than a few ridiculously expensive prime real estate, he had invested in and developed these real estate. Naturally, other than the real estate, the company's shares had also been divided in advance. Villas, resorts, entertainment centers, production companies. As an artist, Ji Yuxingze had a high income. These high incomes were all used for investment. His life was not full of luxury. On the contrary, compared to other male stars, his life could be described as pure and simple. Chin-ju did not know why he had signed so many documents in advance. What kind of health condition did he have that made him sign so many documents in one go? In his account, half of the 9-figure assets were used for public welfare. Ji Yuxingze had already signed the documents for the division of assets. What made Chin-ju even more heartbroken was that Ji Yuxingze's inheritance list included him. A commercial office building in the CBD was under his name. What surprised him even more was that he had actually signed the volunteer donation form. He flipped it open and glanced at it. His pupils violently contracted. Unknowingly, in the blink of an eye, the day of the memorial service arrived. For some reason, perhaps even the heavens felt pity for him. Early in the morning, the sky began to drizzle. The entire sky was gray and the world was dark and damp, as if it was also crying for him. At 10 a.m., the fans arrived at the memorial hall. However, only a few hundred fans were allowed to enter the memorial hall. Moreover, they were only allowed to enter the main entrance. They were not allowed to enter the memorial hall. However, there were still many loyal fans who rushed over from various places and waited outside the door in the drizzle. The sky was dark and the fans were standing guard outside the door. Soon, the funeral car carrying the coffin slowly drove into the funeral parlor. The fans immediately guessed that Ji Yuxingze's body was in the hearse. Before the fans came, they had made an agreement with each other that they must abide by the rules of the venue, obey the instructions, and not cause any unnecessary trouble for the memorial service of their beloved idols. Chapter 2899. However, there were also fans who couldn't control their sadness. It wasn't until the funeral car passed by them that the fans collectively burst into tears as if the world had collapsed. There were even crazy fans who went up to hit the car door and wailed, "Xingze, don't leave us. Xingze, wake up. Xingze, Xingze." Sob. Everyone was infected by the desperate and helpless cries as tears streamed down their faces. The memorial hall of Beijing's Hongyang funeral parlor had been fully decorated. Many celebrities sent wreaths. Many celebrities came to offer their condolences. Most of them were artistes who had worked with Ji Yuxingze before, and they offered their condolences. At 8 o'clock in the morning, many celebrities rushed to the scene in their nanny vans. It was unknown if they were sincere or if they were just putting on an act. It was as if they were trying to match the atmosphere. Regardless of whether they were male or female, they all burst into tears. After all, attending such an occasion with fans and the media present, if they didn't shed a single tear, they would be reported as cold-blooded by the media and accused by the fans of having a heart of stone. This was especially so for Lin Ji. Even though she wasn't on the invitation list for the memorial, she knew that this was a rare opportunity to create hype. Ji Yuxingze's memorial service was extremely sensational. More than 100 media outlets would attend, and there would be overwhelming coverage. If she were to participate, she would definitely be able to gain a lot of exposure. Of course, she had to put on an act. Her acting skills were not bad, to begin with. It was not difficult for her to shed a few tears. Therefore, as soon as she got out of the nanny van, Lin Ji covered her face with a handkerchief. Her eyes were red, and her emotions had been brewing on the way here. After getting out of the car, she was supported by her assistant as she cried all the way to the memorial hall. Qin Ju stood at the door, dressed in black. When he suddenly saw Lin Ji walking towards the memorial hall, he was stunned for a moment and quickly gritted his teeth in anger. This Lin Ji, even at this time, she still didn't forget to create hype. When Lin Ji walked to his side, he warned her fiercely, "Since you're uninvited, please don't cause trouble at the memorial service. Otherwise, I'll definitely ban you." Lin Ji was shocked by Qin Ju's threatening words. She said aggrievedly, "I'm sincerely here to send Xingzhe off. I've always respected senior Xingzhe for so many years. That's for the best." After Qin Ju finished speaking, he no longer looked at her. Lin Ji patted her chest lightly, wiped her tears guiltily, and walked into the venue. Outside the door, the fans followed the arrangement of the venue staff and lined up. There were only 20 minutes left before the memorial service began. Some of them couldn't help but discuss among themselves. "Do you think Yun Shusha will come today?" "I think so." After all, she had starred in her first film with Jiyu Xingzhe as the male and female lead. Moreover, they had acted in a reality show together as imaginary lovers. Moreover, the recently completed production of Extreme Youth